supplies from the level 10 factory. Huami continued to move, recycling garbage while opening a level 10 factory to produce supplies. The small sweeping robot placed in the Xiangqing garbage dump continues to eat garbage and has no way of keeping up with Huami's consumption. Unlock storage level 13, space 13 by 1. When a lucky draw X1 remaining lucky draws X5 because of the crazy large amount of production materials in a short period of time, plus each harvest was 1 million oranges, Huami's level 12 storage was successfully exceeded and directly soared to level 13 storage. She looked at the X5 lottery opportunities she had accumulated and continued saving. It is estimated that the level 13 storage cannot be upgraded any further as the supporting facilities cannot keep up. So far, the black soil has only been upgraded to level 5. This really cannot be blamed on Huijing and his team being too slow, but rather the workload of building a bunker for Huami was too huge. But Huami suddenly thought that the project was too large and she could find some smaller jobs. Last time, we built a wall around the 2 square meters of black land for the RV warehouse, which was also considered a security and defense project for her. Next time she gets black soil, she will ask Huijing's engineering team to build a wall for her. A few square meters of land is surrounded by a wall. As soon as this thought came to mind, a subtitle appeared.
Turn on security scan.
Completion of Security and Defense Works Defense Engineering Rating. Clearing Hunanbi Expressway Rating. Intermediate Protection Project obtained 6 square meters of black land. Please select a site for the black land. When a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X6? Huami asked in a panic. Wasn't the Hunanbi Expressway cleared by her a long time ago? She quickly called the leader of the clearance team, Huijing's 8th uncle, and asked, "Hey, 8th uncle, what did you do?" Before she left the clearance team, she gave each member of the clearance team a universal signal connector because she knew there was no mobile phone signal in City B. Anyway, there are not many members in the clearance team, only about 10 people in total. After all, this tow clearance team will be running back and forth on Hunanbi Expressway in the future, so they can contact each other if anything happens. It is also easier to contact family members. When the 8th uncle heard this, he was terrified and said timidly, "Miss Hua, didn't you ask us to clear the obstacles?" When Huami left, she did not tell them which road in City B they should clear the obstacles on. It just means that all the streets and alleys in City B have been cleared. So they all got together and decided to start clearing the obstacles from the end of Hunanbi Expressway. Because the tail section is connected to the garbage dump, only after clearing the obstacles at the tail section can they use cars to transport all the garbage out of City B. After saying this, Huami suddenly understood that the so-called Xiangbi Expressway does not refer to the expressway from the gate of Xiang City to the gate of B City. The last section of Hunanbi Expressway goes around most of City B and passes directly by the garbage dump in City B. Only when a highway is completely cleared from the beginning to the end can it be considered a safety defense project. Huami finally understood. Oh, please don't fire them. They have elderly parents and young children to take care of, and they also have wives to support. Thinking back to the beginning, they came to work for me just to get some medical supplies. But gradually, the lives of the people around them became increasingly difficult, and their own abundance of material goods became apparent. Any intelligent person would know that if things continue to develop in this way, life for mankind will become increasingly difficult. Then I can't lose Miss Hua's job. Huami laughed while holding her phone. It's not a failure. Just keep working. It's a good thing. I'll find Boss Gong later and give you an award for the best street cleaner. The awards issued by the garrison are of great value. No matter what era it is, you can brag about it for the rest of your life. 8th uncle immediately smiled happily, hung up the phone with Huami, waved his hand. 9th brother-in-law, 10th brother-in-law, keep working hard. Miss Hua said that Boss Gong is going to give us an award. Sure Diadia's hands were shaking with excitement, and she sent a message back. Sure Diadia? Old lady, Miss Hua said that as long as I work hard, Boss Gong will give me a year-end award in person. After sending the message back, Grandma Ten told everyone that her old man and Gong were close friends regardless of age difference. After calling the tow removal team, She thought about it and decided that she still had to go back to Xiangqing to settle the newly acquired 6 square meters of black land. The black soil that has been settled in front has been harvesting straw, fruits, and rice. Although the number is not as many as oranges, it is still much faster than the normal growth rate in reality. A little bit of sand makes a tower. Now, except for oranges, the quantity of every kind of fruit is tens of thousands. Huami took out an apple, washed it with mineral water, took a bite, walked around casually, and returned to Xiangqing Lianhua Xingxing supermarket. As soon as she left, Yang Honglin, wearing a torn raincoat, climbed over the entire garbage mountain, stood on the top of the garbage mountain, and shouted, "What, kind-hearted person? Kind-hearted person?" He didn't know Huami's name, he just saw her coming in this direction, so he came over to see her. He planned to take the children to the entrance of City B and wanted to ask Huami if she wanted to go with him. As a result, I almost fell. Yang Honglin looked down and saw, oh my God, in front of him, a deep depression appeared in the ocean of garbage. In the not-so-big garbage pit, there was a little mud and water accumulated underground because of the rain. I thought there was too much garbage piled up, and more garbage kept rolling into this depression around. Where did this come from? Yang Honglin was shocked. He had been living with his children near the garbage dump for almost half a month, and had never discovered that there was such a deep depression here. The children behind me were also wearing tattered raincoats. Each of them was holding a few bright yellow, fresh oranges in their hands, and they were trudging through the garbage mountain with difficulty.
Yang.
Yang Honglin turned around in a hurry and shouted loudly, "Don't come over here. Don't come over here. Let's go. I'll take you to the city gate first." He has his duties. Although he is the only policeman left in City B, he still has to stick to this duty and uphold this honor. Yang Honglin planned to take the children to see if there were any supplies for sale at the city entrance. Then come back to find that kind girl. Otherwise, it would be very unsafe for such a beautiful girl to wander around City B alone. He planned to go down the garbage mountain, take a group of dirty children, each of them holding a few oranges, and start the hike. Huami, who was supposed to be in City B, had already returned to Xiangqing. As soon as she returned, even though she was wearing a waterproof tarpaulin raincoat, she could still smell the thick, sticky moisture in the air. The terrain of Xiangqing is lower than that of City B and City A. Water vapor will fall downward along the terrain. Gradually, even if it does not rain in Xiangqing, it will become a depression where water vapor gathers in various cities. What's more, such water vapor is not ordinary at all. She frowned, standing at the entrance of the supermarket, looking at the pitch-black gray mist ahead. In this kind of environment, if you don't wear goggles and a respirator, you will die. Putting on goggles, Huami saw Huijing walking towards her. He looked like he was walking in water, with sticky ripples all around him as he walked. Huami couldn't help but call Ko Minghong. "Mr. Ko, what's going on with the moisture in Xiangqing?" Ko Minghong sighed on the phone. "It's getting thicker and thicker. I'm beginning to wonder if Xiangqing will eventually become the bottom of the ocean. Look at this state. Does it look like we've gone back hundreds of millions of years, when the planet's terrain changed and the dinosaurs became extinct? Isn't it said that the extinction of dinosaurs was caused by the change of terrain after the planetary collision, with oceans becoming mountains and highlands becoming valleys? These frequent earthquakes have changed the terrain, with Xiangqing becoming lower and lower, and the surrounding cities becoming higher and higher. The water will flow towards Xiangqing and will soon be submerged." Huami frowned and thought for a while. This really didn't happen in her previous life. She also sighed and advised, "I think it could be worse. Mr. Ko, look at this vapor. It's different from ordinary vapor. It's more viscous. You can't go out without a respirator." Yes, fortunately there is Huami's respirator and dehumidifier. Speaking of this matter, Ko Minghong asked hurriedly, "Xiaohua, I'm really embarrassed about something. Can you help me out?"
What?
Huami didn't understand. "What are you looking for?" Ko Minghong was even more embarrassed and whispered, "I'm being held by the garrison now. I know you have a good relationship with the garrison. Can you get me out? The emergency department can't do without me."
I'm Buse.
Huami frowned when she heard this. "Wait a minute. Don't be anxious. Let's start from the beginning. At this time, Jing trudged to Huami, and Huami gestured to him, asking him to wait a moment. She turned around and said to Ko Minghong on the phone, "Begin to speak." Because of the generosity and selflessness of Xiangqing's management, more and more seriously injured patients are airdropped into Xiangqing every day. The emergency area can no longer accommodate so many people, so it has no choice but to expand it. Therefore, emergency areas need a lot of dehumidifiers. There is also an unlimited supply of respirators, especially respirators, which have become an indispensable medical supply. Otherwise, something big will happen in the emergency department. Ko Minghong saw the seriousness of the problem. He felt that no matter how much supplies Huami had, after continuously supplying medical supplies to the emergency area for such a long time, they should be almost empty. If he asked Huami for medical supplies again, he was afraid of delaying the garrison there. After all, everyone can see what is happening now. There are more and more people in the rescue center. If it weren't for the garrison to maintain order, how chaotic would Xiangqing be? But without a respirator, all the people in Xiangqing would die. The kind where not a single one is left. So after searching everywhere and finding no one to turn to, Ko Minghong went to the Xiangqing management to ask for a respirator. He wanted to ask Yu Guanglin where he could find a respirator and a dehumidifier in Xiangqing, especially a large number of respirators. Before he even opened his mouth, Yu Guanglin asked Ko Minghong for 50,000 respirators. The first thing he asked for was 50,000. Ko Minghong started fighting with Yu Guanglin on the spot. When the earthquake first started, all the original Xiangqing residents who could escape ran away. Now, I don't know if there are more than 50,000 people left in Xiangqing. Although there were survivors from City B, the 50,000 respirators that Yu Guanglin requested were not for the survivors from City B at all. He is stocking goods for the entire Xiangqing management level. How many people are there in the management level of Xiangqing? Even a gentleman like Ko Minghong couldn't bear it anymore and had a fight with Yu Guanglin. Yu Guanglin pulled out all the hairs on his head. In the end, Ko Minghong and Yu Guanglin were successfully taken away by the Xiangqing garrison and are now being held in a mobile cabin next to the management headquarters building. Huami didn't know whether to laugh or sigh when she heard this. She held the phone in one hand and put one hand on her waist. "You are too serious. Yu Guanglin wants a respirator. As long as he pays for it, you can sell it to him. Didn't you ask him for funding before and he just laughed it off? This time you are blocking him." Ko Minghong is an honest man who takes things very seriously, but when honest people are pushed into a corner, they can do things that surprise people. Without waiting for Ko Minghong to speak, Huami continued, "I still have a lot of respirators and dehumidifiers, enough to last forever, but you don't have anything to exchange with me, mister. Ko, you need to stand up. Think about it yourself. Instead of fighting with Yu Guanglin, it's better to make him uncomfortable, right?" After hanging up the phone with Ko Minghong, Huami called Gong Yi again, told him the whole story, and asked Gong Yi to release Ko Minghong. Gong Yi laughed out loud when he heard this. This old man is quite stubborn. Not only do we have to make Yu Guanglin pay for the respirator, but we also have to make Yu Guanglin pay for Ko Minghong's hair transplant. Yu Guanglin was too cruel. Just think about the few hairs on Ko Minghong's head. There weren't many in total, but he actually had the heart to pull them all out for Ko Minghong. Huami was standing in the rain, listening to Gong Yi's hearty laughter on the phone, and her eyebrows couldn't help but curve up. At present, Xiangqing's management system and garrison system have not been separated. Both parts are closely related. In all cities, the management system is definitely higher than the garrison system. Garrisons at the same level must listen to administrators at the same level. However, due to Gong Yi's rebellious nature, the management system cannot suppress the garrison system. Now there is a subtle sense that the garrison is counterattacking the administrator. The detention of Yu Guanglin, the top commander in charge of Xiangqing management, is very telling. Huami once again felt that it was a great fortune for the entire Xiangqing that Gong Yi was able to survive. She handed Ko Minghong's matter over to Gong Yi and was about to hang up the phone. The other end asked again, "Are you done with your work?" "Not yet." Huami didn't dare to tell Gong Yi that she had already returned to Xiangqing. Before, this man had so earnestly invited her to go visit the material storage depot in City B together. He always thought that Hua Mi was in City B. Do you want me to find someone to help you? Gong Yi seemed very enthusiastic. He had no intention of prying into Hua Mi's secret. He just wanted Hua Mi to finish her work quickly. He wanted to take her to see the material storage depot in City B. But Hua Mi refused directly. No. You can't help me. Okay, I have something else to do. I'm hanging up now. After ruthlessly hanging up Gong Yi's call, Hua Mi turned around to look at Hu Jing and asked with her eyes, "What's the matter?" Hu Jing filled a plastic bag with some water and said exaggeratedly, "Miss Hua, look."
What?
Hua Mi tilted her head and looked into the plastic bag. Inside was a ball of clear water. She asked in confusion, "What do you want me to see?" "Look at this water, Miss Hua. This water looks like my child's jelly. Just a little more runny than jelly. To be precise, it's a bit like unsolidified jelly." Seeing that Hua Mi didn't believe it, Hu Jing took a spoon, scooped a spoonful of water from the plastic bag, and then shook it. Only then did Hua Mi see clearly that the water was solidified, but because the solidification effect was not obvious, it looked thin. Her expression froze on her face as she asked, "How is this done?" "I didn't do this. I put a basin on the ground and collected rainwater overnight. When I woke up, the water in the basin looked like this." Hu Jing was a little anxious and didn't explain himself clearly. In fact, the water in the basin would just disperse once poured out, and there was no sense of solidification, but he just thought it was quite novel and couldn't help but scoop up a plastic bag of water and show it to Hua Mi. Hua Mi pondered for a moment. "I don't know why this happened. When Kuming Hong comes out, I'll ask him for a scientific explanation. Now you should decorate my supermarket inside and out with tarpaulin, including the roof and the floor. You have to be careful too. The rain keeps falling, and when it gathers together, it becomes condensed, which is definitely not good for your respiratory system. Bring some tarpaulins home and insulate your home." After explaining these things to Hu Jing, Hua Mi sent the discovery to Kuming Hong, Yi Rong, Gong Yi, and Shi Chuan respectively. Even the gas station relative and the agricultural trade giant, Hua Mi gave them both a send-off. Hua Mi was not too worried about Gong Yi. He was now in City B, which had a higher terrain than Xiangqing. But people in Xiangqing should be careful. After all, if a person lives in water mist, he can still survive with the help of a respirator, but if he lives in jelly, he will most likely turn into a granular orange. After sending the group message, Hua Mi asked Hu Jing to go about his business, while she went to the back of the supermarket to settle down the newly acquired 6 square meters of black soil. Then he planted bayberry, watermelon, cantaloupe, loquat, strawberry, and tea trees on the 6 square meters of black soil. She planted all that could be planted, and under the circumstances, the yield of these fruits was enough for her to eat until the end of time. Even if we add the stomachs of 2 more cubs in the future, it will be enough. Hua Mi has no shortage of food. What she lacks is quality food. After planting the black soil, Hua Mi turned around and walked out of the barbed wire and went to the underground garage again. The room has been completely renovated by Hu Jing and the contractor, and a layer of waterproof tarpaulin has been added to prevent water seepage. The entrance was enlarged a bit, and a canopy was built using cement and tarpaulin provided by Hua Mi. The exit at the other end of the garage has been tightly sealed, also using Hua Mi's cement. In this way, there is only one entrance and exit to the underground garage to prevent thieves from entering through the exit and stealing supplies. Because she was worried that the supplies would get damp, Hua Mi later instructed the contractor to put up another layer of waterproof tarpaulin in the underground garage. Sure enough, when Hua Mi went in, it was very dry and the air humidity was very low. It's just that supplies are consumed faster and faster. Now, the people who come to this underground garage to drag supplies include the Garrison Supplies Department and the RV supermarket. Tangyu would occasionally send some garrisons to carry away a lot of oranges and sell them at the city gate. Hua Mi emptied a small half of the oranges in the level 13 storage outside and almost occupied the entire underground garage. She also stuffed all the materials she produced into the underground garage. The materials were piled all the way to the awning at the entrance of the underground garage. It seemed that they could not be stacked anymore, so a lot of them were left in the rain, just waiting for Tang Yu, Yi Rong, and others to come and drag them away. Just as Huami was busy putting supplies into the underground garage, a large number of people in Xiangcheng with respiratory distress poured into the emergency area. A large proportion of them are survivors from City B. They had just arrived in Xiangcheng and were not used to wearing respirators. Some also wore respirators, but the quality was poor and was far from as effective as the respirators provided by Huami. Yu Guanglin and Ke Minghong, who were still being held in the mobile home and whose conflict was being mediated by Chao Feng, received the news at the same time. Yu Guanglin, who was sitting on a small stool, frowned at Ke Minghong and asked, "Why are there so many people suffering from respiratory distress? Why, what is going on?" Ke Minghong, who was also sitting on a small stool, had a shiny bald head and rolled his eyes at Yu Guanglin. "Didn't I report this to you a long time ago? The concentration of moisture in the air is too high. We need a lot of money to buy dehumidifiers and respirators." Yes, but Yu Guanglin didn't expect the matter to be so serious. He looked at the text message on the mobile phone in his hand. The text message was sent by his secretary. Early this morning, more than half of the people in the entire Xiangqing management system did not come to work. Several administrators collapsed on the way to work due to respiratory distress. Inside the Xiangqing management building, several administrators who were working collapsed. As if they had been hit by some plague, those who survived the earthquake fell one after another. It's not due to any other reason. It's all due to insufficient oxygen supply to the brain and respiratory distress. Yu Guanglin took a look at the temporary mobile house built by the garrison. Throughout Xiangqing, there are garrison patrols on all roads that have been cleared by the clearance team. Gong Yi has a strict control over the order of the entire Xiangqing. Therefore, such mobile cabins are temporarily set up on every street to temporarily detain people who cause trouble. The floor of this mobile home is covered with tarpaulin. In here, Yu Guanglin did not feel any breathing difficulty for the time being. He frowned and said to Ke Minghong, "I have too much to do. The garrison is unreasonable and doesn't give me any time at all. So, I just read your report when I had some free time." In fact, Ke Minghong made the report more than once. He made it countless times. At first, the matter was reported to Qin Ziren, but later Qin Ziren was transferred and there was no new management commander for the emergency area for the time being. So Ke Minghong submitted the report directly to the management headquarters. Yu Guanglin knew it all. But the management also has its own difficulties. They are busy. Many academic reports from all walks of life have been submitted for review. To be honest, Ke Minghong's conjecture without any evidence is not worthy of attention. As administrators, they were thinking about how to deal with Gong Yi internally and deduct some supplies from Gong Yi. At the same time, they also had to maintain the glorious image of Xiangqing externally. They took the initiative to invite seriously injured patients from all cities to come to Xiangqing. The most important thing is that when discussing an issue, they often have to discuss it for a long time with big meetings, small meetings, dinners, and creating a workplace culture. Things pile up one after another, so it is difficult to take Ke Minghong's report seriously. When Ke Minghong heard this, he was so angry that he wanted to explode. He pounded the table and shouted, "You know nothing, and you dare to ask the emergency department to transfer 50,000 respirators just to stock up for your management? Is this too much of an exaggeration?" He thought Yu Guanglin had already paid attention to the moisture in the air, so he wanted 50,000 respirators. Chao Feng sat opposite the two parties and looked at Yu Guanglin with disdain. Yu Guanglin's face was filled with embarrassment. "Well, your supplies are obtained from the garrison anyway." The reason why he asked for such a high price was because of the 10 billion yuan that Gong Yi had snatched away. All the money coming from outside was taken away by Gong Yi at the first opportunity, and the Xiangqing management system did not get a penny. Xiangqing is short of supplies now. Do we have to ask Gong Yi for them? Yes, Yu Guanglin didn't dare to offend Gong Yi. He was afraid that Gong Yi would really pull the trigger of the gun in his hand at him. He didn't dare to ask Gong Yi for food openly. Then we need something else. Respirator X 50,000. Ask the emergency department directly, and then the emergency department will ask the garrison for it. It's the same. Kuming-hong was so angry that he wanted to beat Yu Guanglin again. All the medical supplies in the emergency area now were obtained by him in exchange for Huami using the medical supplies that were stuck outside the city. He has paid this price. But he couldn't say it, otherwise he would give Huami away, and who knows how the shameless Yu Guanglin would harass Huami. Kuming-hong decided to beat Yu Guanglin up first to vent his anger. But he was pressed down by the garrison behind him. Opposite the two men, Chao Feng, whose face was covered in plastic, looked at Yu Guanglin coldly. The boss said that if your management system wants respirators, you have to buy them from our garrison material warehouse. These respirators didn't fall from the sky. We bought them with real money. You want them just because you say so, but you're dreaming. Kuming-hong also pounded the table. Yes, if you want a respirator, you have to buy it from our emergency department. I still need money to buy a dehumidifier. If you don't approve the funds, I will use the money to buy a respirator. This. Yu Guanglin was at a loss. The garrison and Kuming-hong were teaming up, right? They were going to rebel. None of them are controlled by the management system, which is against the will of heaven. He slammed the table and was about to stand up, but Chao Feng put his hand on the holster on his waist. Yu Guanglin stopped talking, sat with his head down, and thought about the problem motionlessly. Well, Xiangqing has some capital reserves, but if this money is taken out, it will be very difficult for Xiangqing to restore its former economy when order is restored in the future. In fact, many cities have experienced economic collapse and money is no longer valuable. No matter how much economic reserves Xiangqing has, they are useless now, and maybe even more useless in the future. Yu Guanglin knew that his excuse was ridiculous. He just didn't want to be coerced by others. In other words, he didn't want Xiangqing to be in such a state of disorder as it is now. It didn't matter if a traitor like Gong Yi dared to point a gun at him. Even the head of the emergency department's medical staff dared to do this to him. How can he survive in Xiangqing as a future Xiangqing administrator? Can he still have his former status? Chao Feng shook his pen and said impatiently, "What does that have to do with me? I will do whatever our boss tells me to do, and the rest is your concern and has nothing to do with me." Kuming-hong made up for it in time. It has nothing to do with me. I need funding. I want to continue purchasing dehumidifiers. If you don't have money, then spend it to buy respirators for the emergency area. The two of them chatted with each other, completely disregarding Yu Guanglin's difficulties. Yu Guanglin wanted to not respond to the two men, but if he didn't take out the money today, he would not be allowed to leave. With so many administrators falling outside, Yu Guanglin felt as if he was being robbed. He frowned and insisted that for economic reasons, Xiangqing's financial reserves could not be touched. After a while, a text message came. Administrator A. Commander, breathing is too difficult. 9 out of 10 people in our office have collapsed. Administrator B. Commander, all the guards in the management building have collapsed and have been sent to the emergency room. I can't hold on any longer. Please arrange for someone else to do the next job. Administrator C. Commander, your sister-in-law and your 2 children are in the emergency room. The moisture is very abnormal today. Wife, your mother is coughing up blood and can't breathe. Come and see her for the last time. Text messages came one after another, and at first Yu Guanglin was still able to remain stubborn. But the last text message directly broke Yu Guanglin's defense. Without a respirator, it really won't work. He can't be detained any longer. Finally, Yu Guanglin was forced to use the city's financial reserves in Xiangqing Bank and bought 10,000 respirators from Kuming-hong at a price of 1,000 yuan per respirator. This is how he was able to escape. As soon as he came out of the mobile home, Yu Guanglin rushed to the emergency area. The Xiangqing management class, which had not collapsed even after such a huge earthquake, is now heading towards collapse at the speed of light. How can Yu Guanglin turn the tide? Yu Guanglin rushed to the emergency area and had a false alarm. His wife, children, and elderly mother were sent to the emergency room and survived. I don't know what brand of dehumidifier is installed in this emergency area. As soon as Yu Guanglin entered, he clearly felt that the air humidity inside and outside was at 2 completely different extremes. The emergency department was doing great. There is no need for any testing. All people who have respiratory distress are suffering from excessive moisture in the air. He told his wife, children, and elderly mother to take good care of themselves in the emergency area and walked out on the waterproof tarpaulin that covered the entire emergency area. As soon as I left the house, the deputy commander of Xiangqing management came with a young man. Commander, great. I finally found you. Let me introduce him. His name is Qin Ziren. He said he can solve the problem of material shortage in Xiangqing. Yu Guanglin looked back. Qin Ziren? He had no impression of him. What's his background? In today's environment, anyone who can loudly say that he can solve the problem of material shortage in Xiangqing must either have a very powerful background or a very ruthless personality. Qin Ziren took 2 steps forward and said to Yu Guanglin politely, Commander, I don't have any impressive background. Compared to Gong Yi, I am not even close. But I know who has been purchasing supplies for the garrison. As he spoke, he handed over a stack of information about Huami and then said, the reason why the garrison has so many supplies is that this woman has been helping to purchase them. Although I don't know how she does it, I have to say that she is really resourceful and her supply channels are more than you can imagine. The RV supermarket at the rescue center is also hers. She has a lot of supplies, and she can even sell them continuously. No one has ever carefully calculated how much cargo Huami has. Everyone is already living a miserable life. Who has the mood and energy to squat near her RV and carefully calculate how much goods her RV supermarket can sell every day? Except for the dead Dai Fong. At Qin Ziren's request, Dai Fong staked out outside the RV supermarket. At that time, Qin Ziren asked her to carefully record the shipment volume of the RV supermarket. Qin Ziren felt a little strange at that time. But Dai Fong doesn't have the brains to think so much. She just felt that Huami's supply was really sufficient, and why was Huami so fond of showing off? All she knew was to give those garrisons and lifeguards some small favors. Haha, hypocrisy. Dai Fong, who had nothing and no way to give small favors to the garrisons and lifeguards, told Qin Ziren about this matter, as if she were complaining. Qin Ziren kept it in mind. During the time when he was dismissed from his post by the management system, Qin Ziren was collecting the shipment volume of Huami. Finally, he used his connections and stood in front of Yu Guanglin with the information he had collected during this period. He said that he wanted Huami to come back to him because among all the women he knew, Huami was the most beautiful and the best one. It is still the most secure one now. Qin Ziren is a favored son of the emperor. He is so outstanding that if he wants a woman, he must have the best one. So, he must fight for himself a good turnaround. Even if this comeback happens, it is likely to bring trouble to Huami. Even if you have to step on flowers to climb up. Yu Guanglin was really interested in the information Qin Ziren handed over. He flipped through it carefully and said to the deputy commander beside him, how could she ship so much in one day? And she's been selling for so long. Where does she get the goods from? The deputy commander reminded him, this woman has a close relationship with Gong Yi. It is said that the entire rescue center garrison listens to this woman. Yu Guanglin considered carefully, rolled up the information in his hand, and said, go to that RV supermarket and see if you can talk to this woman. He lifted his foot and stepped down the stairs, only to feel something strange under his feet. He looked down and saw that the water had accumulated very deep, covering his instep. Stepping into the water felt like stepping into jelly. It was such a great feeling. Yu Guanglin gritted his teeth and continued to move forward. His body swayed, and he was supported by Qin Ziren beside him. Commander, be careful. Qin Ziren is a professional when it comes to currying favor with his superiors. Yu Guanglin nodded to the young man, saying that he was very sensible and could be of great use. The group quickly walked to the outside of the RV supermarket. Just as they were about to get closer, Tang Yu appeared and stopped them. The garrison, which was once unrecognizable, now has the plastic shell on its face starting to crack, revealing the fair skin underneath. Tang Yu led a platoon of soldiers and said to Yu Guanglin with a fake smile, Commander, what are you doing? In the rain, the jelly-like sticky water has already reached above the ankles. Yu Guanglin looked at Tang Yu seriously. I'm looking for someone to talk to. There are many things that need to be clarified. Huami has so many channels to obtain supplies. Why does it only purchase supplies for the garrison? Now the Xiangqing management system is becoming less and less useful. Due to the shortage of supplies, the administrators are becoming increasingly passive in the face of garrison. Even to buy a few respirators, they had to be purchased from the emergency area. Even he, a city management commander, has been repeatedly threatened with guns pointed at his head. Yu Guanglin felt unfamiliar with the feeling of being constrained by others. In the eyes of these administrators, the rules of the game are made by them, no matter what, all kinds of people, all kinds of things. Everyone should enter the game according to the rules they set. Yu Guanglin enjoyed being at the pinnacle of power and did not want to admit so easily that in extraordinary times, violence was the only way to gain the right to speak. Tang Yu stopped Yu Guanglin and said to him with a smile, "Commander, our boss said that what you should do now is to focus on restoring urban management, settling the survivors, and avoiding disasters. You don't have to worry about the rest. Our boss has already gone to get supplies back." In the drizzling rain, Yu Guanglin looked serious and angry. "I am the chief of urban management of Xiangqing. I have the responsibility and obligation to plan, manage, and integrate all resources for this city. For the survival of the city, I want to see Miss Hua. Are you going to stop me from making such a small request?" There was a righteous light in Yu Guanglin's eyes as he rebuked Tang Yu. "Or are you so selfish that you not only took away 10 billion but also monopolized all supply channels? Gong, you went to transport the war supplies stored in the material warehouse in City B, but Gong Yi did not bring a Xiangqing administrator with him. I think the retrieved materials will not be handed over to the Xiangqing management for arrangement. In this situation, the management cannot even control the materials, which makes them even more passive. The weather has become much colder again, so everyone remember to put on more clothes. At this time of the year, I guess Little Meme will be on winter vacation." Tang Yu promised his boss that he would not let anyone touch Huami. With a chapped face, he said coldly to Yu Guanglin, "There is no one you are looking for in front. If you want to buy supplies, you can find Ke Minghong or contact the Garrison Supplies Office directly. There will be no shortage of supplies for your management level. Why must we find Sister Hua? At this time, as long as we can buy supplies, why must we find the most important person?" Yu Guanglin also looked at Tang Yu with a rather cold gaze. He did not believe that Tang Yu, a mere garrison, could do anything to him. "This is a consideration of our management. I don't need to inform you. I must see the person I want to see today." "Well, I'm sorry, Commander Yu. You can't get through." The entire RV supermarket was protected by garrisons. Since the survivors from City B flocked to Xiangqing, Gong Yi ordered that even the garrisons in Xiangqing be equipped with live ammunition. No one dared to cause trouble outside the RV supermarket. Even under the sight of the garrison, the survivors would line up in an orderly manner to buy supplies at the RV supermarket. In the thick fog ahead, a long queue of survivors formed, which went deep into the fog, and it was impossible to see how long the queue was. Just when the atmosphere was tense between Yu Guanglin and his group and Tang Yu, Huami happened to drive a large truck filled with supplies to the RV supermarket. She got out of the driver's seat of the car and looked at Yi Rong, who was coming towards her. "Yi Rong, what are Tang Yu and the others doing?" Because she was wearing goggles, she could see Tang Yu and Yu Guanglin facing each other very clearly from 20 meters away. Yi Rong didn't have time to ask Huami when she came back from City B. She called Dafu, Xiaofu, and Afu, the factory manager, and Yu Mengmeng to unload the goods, and hurriedly said to Huami, "The person your ex-boyfriend brought here has bad intentions." If the person who came was kind, Tang Yu would not have stopped him. Huami turned her head to look. If she was not mistaken, the people that Tang Yu led the garrison to stop should be Yu Guanglin and Qin Ziren and a few other men, who were probably all management-level people. This Qin Ziren is quite resourceful. He even got in touch with the top leader of Xiangqing's management. After a moment of hesitation, Huami walked forward and called out from a distance, "Ayu, I haven't seen you for a few days. You are getting more and more handsome, TSK." Tang Yu turned around and was a little confused when he heard the voice. In fact, he still didn't understand. Wasn't Hua-mi in City B? Yu Guanglin immediately raised his hand and greeted Hua-mi. Miss Hua, let's chat, Miss Hua. Hua-mi, who was standing behind Tang Yu and other garrisons, frowned. As expected, Yu Guanglin was coming for her. She walked forward and said to Tang Yu in a soothing tone, I'll talk to him. Tang Yu frowned and reminded quietly, Sister Hua, these administrators are very cunning and difficult to deal with. Hua-mi nodded, wearing a raincoat and long boots, kicking the jelly water under her feet that had already reached her ankles. Tang Yu and the other garrisons automatically split into two sides to let Hua-mi pass. She walked up to Yu Guanglin. Tell me, what's the matter? Yu Guanglin looked Hua-mi up and down. How could such a simple woman, who looked pretty and slim, without any other features, have so many supplies in her hands? He pondered and said, How about we go somewhere else? Let's talk at the management headquarters. No need, if you want to say it, just say it. If not, I'll leave. Hua-mi didn't have time to go to the management headquarters for tea and chat, and then slowly explained that this slow process was not suitable for her current pace of life. When she came back to Xiangqing, she didn't tell anyone. She had originally planned to go to City B after delivering the goods. If she hadn't seen Tang Yu and Yu Guanglin arguing with each other, she wouldn't even have gotten out of the car. Miss Hua seems to have a lot of supplies. The ancestral home must have sold for a lot of money. Yu Guanglin began to negotiate, using a very tactful opening. Hua-mi frowned slightly and glanced at Qin Ziren behind Yu Guanglin. All the managers in this row wore respirators, which were produced in her level 10 factory. It seems that Kuming Hong has successfully sold the respirator to Yu Guanglin. She took a deep breath and said to Yu Guanglin, You guys are meddling too much, really. Look at your feet. Everyone lowered their heads and looked at the jelly water that had reached their ankles. Hua-mi's voice sounded, Instead of worrying about how much my ancestral home sold for, look at this jelly like water. Is there any way to solve it? Otherwise, if the rain continues to fall, the entire Xiangqing will become the bottom of the sea. No matter how you change power, it will be useless. Commander Yu, we all understand your management. After all, you have been high and mighty for too long. We are used to what you say, and the whole world revolves around you. But in extraordinary times, you should give up power when it is necessary, and there is no need to linger on the past glory. The management will always exist, but it's people like you who won't exist anymore. Hua-mi understood that in peacetime, the management has the power to make rules. When the end of the world begins, the management should lead the survivors to make a peaceful transition and adapt to the end of the world with the least sacrifice. However, without exception, the management class in peacetime all failed to adapt to the climate in the end times. A management style that is polite, circuitous, slow in decision-making, in roundabout ways, hesitant, and unable to get to the point for a long time is not suitable for the jungle law that is full of dangers. She had seen the management of countless cities constantly trial and error, and constantly destroying the lives of survivors and garrisons. In this life, Hua-mi's station is stationed. Give up struggling, accept the leadership of the garrison, do what you are supposed to do, and you can still be of some use. After saying that, Hua-mi turned around and was about to leave. Yu Guanglin suddenly spoke up. How can you be so sure that everything Gong Yi is doing now is correct? If the world stabilizes soon, what he has done now will be enough to get him shot several times. Hua-mi, who was standing opposite Yu Guanglin, was silent for a moment. In the continuous rain, she suddenly spoke, Okay, then let me ask you, what do you want? I will provide you with supplies. Will you give me money? Yu Guanglin smiled. He felt that Hua-mi had loosened up a bit. There was hope in pulling Hua-mi to the management level. We need to know how much supplies you have, the purchase price, whether the purchase channel is regular, and the profit margin. Considering the current situation, we will not use the market price to buy the supplies you have. In addition, we need to integrate the material resources in your hands so that all the survivors can survive well. As he spoke, he looked at Hua-mi, ignoring the anxious looks on Tang Yu and the others' faces. Gong Yi is like a wild horse that has broken free from its reins. If you take control of the garrison supplies, you will control the reins in the horse's hands. Gong Yi would not disobey. Huami looked at Yu Guanglin and his group with a cold look in her eyes. This is the biggest difference between you and Gong Yi. He never controls me, but you are trying to control me. How to integrate resources if all of them are not under your control? How can we control it if we don't look into the details? Once we look into the details, Huami can explain many things clearly. And once you figure out her details, you can control her completely. This is the rule of the game. The management is always at the top. To enforce the rules, they have to control everything. The smile on Yu Guanglin's face slowly fell. Miss Hua, you need to think clearly. If you can cooperate with the management to integrate resources, your future prospects will be limitless. The management class has great power. Qin Ziren used to work in a purchasing company outside the management class and was paid a high salary right from his debut. If Huami could hand over the supplies in her hands to Yu Guanglin for integration, at this time, she could directly enter the management system as a senior executive. Isn't it better than her standing in the wind and rain now, running around for the garrison? Huami shook her head, thinking that it was pointless to talk any more to Yu Guanglin. It turned out that the administrators of the old era just couldn't adapt well to the new rhythm of the apocalypse. She turned around expressionlessly and was about to leave when Qin Ziren suddenly ran out and stopped her with his hand. Ami. That sound was full of reluctance and unwillingness. Seeing Qin Ziren, I can't bear it anymore. Without Qin Ziren's attention, she wouldn't have been noticed so quickly. Huami turned her body to the side and kicked out, sending Qin Ziren flying several meters and falling backwards to the ground. The kick was so heavy that Qin Ziren spit out blood. At the scene, Yu Guanglin and others' faces changed, and they all stepped forward. How do you hit someone? She beat someone right under the garrison's noses, and you garrison didn't arrest her? What about your garrison discipline? It varies from person to person, right? Several administrators came forward talking at once, and the scene became a little chaotic for a moment. Tang Yu led a small garrison and stood directly in front of Huami, Yu Guanglin, and others. The guns were brought up, and the black muzzles were pointed directly at Yu Guanglin and others. Yu Guanglin's face turned pale, not because he was scared, but because he was angry. With trembling hands, he pointed at Tang Yu, who was giving the order. Do you know what the Hades you are doing? What the Hades are you doing here? Are you trying to rebel? What is the nature of this? Does the garrison captain understand it? A team of armed garrison surrounded the top management, the second in command, and the third in command. This was even worse than Gong Yi going crazy and pointing a gun at Yu Guanglin's head. Are they planning a mutiny? Tang Yu pursed his lips tightly, his eyes firm, and said nothing. He didn't want to do anything, and there was no conspiracy in his open mind. He was just carrying out the task given to him by Commander Gong. Don't let anyone touch Sister Hua. This is his mission. Huami originally wanted to continue beating Qin Ziren, but after hearing what Yu Guanglin said, the expression on her face became even colder. Now is not the time to raise her knife and splatter blood on the spot if she dislikes someone. At least don't make garrisoning difficult. She retracted the murderous intent that was spreading in her heart, turned around, and said slowly to Yu Guanglin in a cold tone, there is an area behind the emergency department in Xiangcheng that has been specially planned out to build a crematorium. Every day, bodies are sent there for cremation. It's hard to count how many bodies are cremated each day. But in City B, there is not even an emergency room or a crematorium. There are many bodies buried in the rubble that have not yet been dug out. The world won't get better, but you can make it better. If you insist on doing this, fighting for power at this time, bullets may come before disaster.
Huami understood.
It was said that at this time, whoever had supplies would rule the world. Yu Guanglin came to her just to get her supplies. The reason why Gong Yi is so awesome is that he has sufficient garrison supplies and does not need the management system to allocate supplies to him. If he cannot ask Yu Guanglin for anything, Yu Guanglin will not be able to control him. But a person like Gong Yi should not be restrained by any external objects. At least from what Huami had seen, every decision Gong Yi made was implemented. The means may be a bit violent, but Huami appreciates it. Qin Ziren rolled on the ground, coughing continuously. He covered his spleen, which might have been broken by Huami's kick, and coughed up some blood. He shouted at Huami, "My mom, Lan Lan, and Uncle Huai have already arrived in Xiangqing. What do they think when they see you become like this?" "Huami, how did you become like this?" "Huami, you were not like this before." His eyes were full of hatred. He thought he could keep Huami and save something. He thought Huami's bad temper was just because of his betrayal. But look at her now. She is a girl, but she treats fighting and kicking people as commonplace, and she will start fighting at the slightest disagreement. This is very different from Huami's original personality. Could it be that Huami was transported through time? Huami pretended not to hear Qin Ziren's shouts. She dealt with Yu Guanglin's group with a cold face. "I don't want to cause trouble. The world is tough. It's not easy to live well, but you will mess things up. From today on, you'd better stay in your management building forever and don't come out to give orders blindly. Otherwise, many people will be killed." So, Huami thought it would be best to lock up Yu Guanglin and others. Of course, this was just her suggestion. Whether Tang Yu would implement it or not was entirely up to him. Yu Guanglin and the others' faces changed drastically, but they saw Huami driving the truck towards the garbage dump. Several administrators chased after her truck, cursing loudly, but Tang Yu and his garrison captured them one by one and dragged them away by the back of their collars. Qin Ziren was still spitting blood and shouting, "My mom, Lan Lan, Uncle Huai." The garrison also lifted him up by the back of his collar and dragged him to the administration building. Huami's truck did not stop. Even though there were ghost howlings behind the car, she heard what Qin Ziren shouted. However, her memory was separated by a lifetime, and she had a vague memory of the 3 people Qin Ziren mentioned. She had no idea what he looked like. "All I know is that Lan Lan is Qin Ziren's sister, and that Uncle Huai is Fong Xian's father and her uncle." In her previous life, Huami grew up in her uncle's house, and her Stockholm syndrome was also developed by this family. She was lonely since she was little and lost her parents at a very early age. Her uncle brought her home. The first thing her aunt did when she entered the house was to call Fong Xian and point at Huami and say, "Your sister Amy is a guest in our house.
She is a guest.
You should get along well with your sister Amy in the future. If you have any problems, you can look for your sister Amy. She is a sensible child when she is a guest in our house. She will do her best to help you." Look, there is not a single word to lie to the children. It is all told the truth. This led to Huami always being very clear that she had no home and was a guest, so she had to follow the rules and be polite. The Fong family kept telling her explicitly and implicitly that she was an orphan and that it was a blessing from heaven that the Fong family took her in, so she shouldn't dream about things that she shouldn't. When dealing with Fong Xian, you must respond to her every request. The feeling of living under someone else's roof is very difficult. Being ignored, looked down upon and despised, and being ordered around like a servant are all normal. But they said that since they gave her a bowl of rice to eat and allowed her to complete 9 years of compulsory education, she must not complain and must be grateful. She really had no complaints and regarded the gift from the Fong family as a rare gift in life. Sometimes, when the Fong family gave her a slightly good look, Huami would be in a good mood for a few days. Even Huami herself kept reminding herself that Fong Xian asked her to do things to prove that she was still useful and that Fong Xian still needed her, so she would not lose her only place of shelter. If nothing unexpected happens, Huami's Stockholm will be enough for the Fong family to support her for the rest of her life. But an accident happened, and the end of the world came unexpectedly. Huami spent her entire life getting rid of her Stockholm and shaping herself step by step into the personality she is today. In fact, if Fong Xian had not pushed her into the pile of zombies in her previous life, Huami's tolerance and patience towards Fong Xian would have reached its limit. Perhaps Fong Xian herself knew that if she hadn't been the first to push Huami into the pile of zombies, Huami would sooner or later abandon her in the apocalypse. So Fong Xian took the initiative. The car continued to move forward, and the raindrops hit the window, making a crackling sound. Ahead is the Xiangqing garbage dump. The incoming call notification on the cell phone pulled Huami out of the mire of distant memories. Huami undoubtedly received a barrage of phone calls from Gong Yi. "When did you run back again? Jumping around everywhere, can you be a little quieter?" He was so angry that Huami couldn't understand, and as soon as the phone was connected, he started yelling at Huami. Huami had already parked the car next to the garbage dump. She looked around and saw that the two-lane road that had just been opened was blocked again. The city clearance team has been working all the time. Every day, a steady stream of garbage is cleared from the city and piled up here. She was triggered by Gong Yi's bad temper and yelled back at Gong Yi speechlessly. Why are you yelling? Can you be a little more patient? I'm just going back to Xiangqing. What's your business where I go? Huami, you are looking for death. How can you talk like that? Have some conscience. Gong Yi kicked a stone away in anger. He was waiting for her in City B. He always thought she was busy in City B. As a result, she went back to Xiangqing first and did not tell him. She also gave orders to Tang Yu, and Tang Yu, who followed her orders, staged a mutiny. No, these were all secondary. The main thing was that Gong Yi was still waiting to take her to see the material warehouse in City B, waiting for her to find time to come out. I'm so furious. Why don't I have a conscience? Huami yelled at him, but before she could finish her words, Gong Yi hung up the phone. He pressed Huami's profile picture hard, wishing he could put her on the blacklist. What a heartless liar. Forget about him ever talking to her again in this life. If he talks to this woman again, he is a dog. The new year has begun. Let's set a small goal first. This year, I must be happy and live a good life. I must eat well, dress warmly, and spend quality time with my little Mia Mia. It's incomprehensible. Huami looked at her beeping phone. Wasn't it just a return trip to Xiangqing? Was she back? Was she missing Gong Yi's supplies, or was she on Yu Guanglin's side? Just now she was defending Gong Yi in front of Yu Guanglin. It is Gong Yi who has no conscience. Huami curled her lips, put away her phone, got out of the car, and started cleaning up the garbage. The garbage dump in Xiangqing is bigger than that in City B. That's because Xiangqing's urban clearance team has been working all the time. Considering the size of an entire city, you can imagine how big this landfill is. If Huami doesn't recycle it, it will be useless even if it is piled here for thousands or hundreds of years. Soon, Huami's recycling station was upgraded. Unlock the third level of the garbage recycling station and get 2 sweeping robots when a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X7 recycling is the easiest way to get a chance to win a lottery. At least that's what Huami thought. She looked at the 2 newly acquired robot vacuum cleaners and the mountain of garbage in front of her. Last time, she placed a sweeping robot here, but she didn't know where it went. The only thing she knew was that the sweeping robot was still eating garbage because her energy was constantly being converted. Although the amount is small, the important thing is that it is continuous and can eventually build a tower. She thought about it and decided to stop using diesel to generate electricity and instead charge the supermarket to get energy. The oil is used very little. It would be a waste to use it to generate electricity. Moreover, the energy bar charges slowly, not as fast as Huami's garbage recycling. As long as there is enough garbage, she can fill the level 10 factory with energy quite quickly. Having made up her mind, Huami released a sweeping robot. This sweeping robot was just like the previous one. Huami plans to keep the remaining robot in City B and secretly put it into the garbage dump in City B. This way, her original garbage collection speed can be 3 times faster, and the energy conversion will also be 3 times faster. After upgrading the recycling station, Huami drove the truck and continued to City B. The reason why she didn't drive a nanny car was because Huami had to drag the goods in front of people. She had to let many people see her dragging a pile of supplies in a truck to City B. The gate of City B has been under martial law. Ikegawa and his friends have set up a stall to resell supplies at the gate. The nanny car that Huami had stuck at the gate of City B before was also parked there safely. Because of the martial law, the originally crowded and chaotic entrance to City B has become much more orderly. Many people from City B are unable to jump over the traffic and quickly enter Xiangqing, so they can only get off the Xiangbi Expressway and return to City B to buy supplies. Huami parked the truck full of supplies next to the stall of Qichuan and others, got out and looked at the garrison under martial law. Qichuan came over and took the initiative to say to Huami, Commander Gong sent people to organize the order. The order at the city gate has improved a lot since he arrived. Well, he is indeed quite capable. Huami expressed her affirmation, and then remembered what Gong Yi said about the material warehouse in City B. She told Chi Chuan to unload the materials from the truck. He walked towards the entrance of City B, to the side of a very conspicuous armored vehicle. From a distance, she saw Gong Yi sitting at the door of the armored vehicle, wearing combat uniform, with a tall and strong figure and a fierce aura, fiddling with a garrison scanning device in his hand. Seeing Huami coming over, he raised his eyelids and glanced at her, then continued to look down at the scanner. Talks to her again, he's a dog. Gong Yi is a little cold today. This was Huami's first intuitive feeling. She stood there and thought for a long time. Did she offend him? That won't do. Gong Yi is a golden thigh. This man is so far-sighted now. In the future, he will definitely be either the base commander or the deputy commander of the base. After a few years, the survivors, who had been tortured countless times inside and outside the apocalypse, began to abandon the city as a unit and finally established a survivor base. There are countless survivor bases of all sizes, but the establishment of most bases is led by the garrison, and finally the garrison commander becomes the base commander. If someone like Gong Yi could survive to the end, the base he would build would only be big. Boss. Huami smiled and called Gong Yi. Seeing that he was still looking down at the scanner, she leaned over and took out a bottle of Coke. I'll treat you to a Coke, boss. Gong Yi held the scanner, leaned sideways, and turned his back to Huami, and did not take her Coke. He definitely doesn't act like a dog. In the car, the radio was beeping. He was causing a mutiny in Xiangqing, and the garrison headquarters was in an uproar. At the car door, Huami sincerely spent 2 seconds thinking about what she had done wrong. Judging from Gong Yi's temperament, he is definitely not a low-level person. She poked the Coke towards Gong Yi's arm. Oh, that's right. It's because things in Xiangqing were too busy. I was in a hurry and didn't inform the boss, right? Adults can't always be like children. It's not good to get upset over such a small thing. Gong Yi didn't answer. His handsome face still looked cold. So Huami took the initiative to stuff the Coke into Gong Yi's combat uniform pocket and continued with a smile. Boss, you are too angry. You yelled at me for no reason, and I, as a woman, was not angry. Why are you angry? You are pregnant. Pregnant. Gong Yi suddenly tilted his head and stared at her fiercely, right? Now, he is being petty and picking a fuss with a woman, right? No, he didn't talk to her. He didn't want to be a dog. But she didn't understand what he was angry about from beginning to end. Look, your eyes are like a wolf's. So scary. You scare me to death. Being angry is like the devil. Huami patted her chest, and Gong Yi continued to glare at her. Pretend. Keep pretending. You liar with sweet words but a sharp tongue. He pursed his lips tightly and said, Don't be a dog, don't be a dog, don't be a dog. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Huami came closer again, smiling ingratiatingly. Boss, I swear, after you hung up on me, I was so upset that I drove all the way to City B to apologize to you. So now are you going to take me to see the supply warehouse in City B? You're speeding? Gong Yi couldn't stand it anymore, so he jumped out of the armored vehicle, glared at her and yelled, Don't you know what the road conditions are like? Are you speeding? The national highway is not easy to drive on. Not only are there falling rocks on the road, but there are also steep sharp turns and no guardrails. Speeding on this kind of road is no different from seeking death. Huami took 2 steps back, uttered an awe, and said as a matter of course, I'm here to apologize to you. I was wrong. I won't drive fast anymore. It was late at night, and it was raining in City B and Xiangqing alike. The garrison set up tents at the city gates and brought powerful searchlights. Ikegawa and others set up a stall under the searchlight to sell supplies. Hearing Gong Yi's yelling, Chi Chuan stretched his neck worriedly and looked in the direction of Gong Yi and Huami. Many survivors waiting in line also turned their eyes over. A little girl, holding her mother's hand, looked up fearfully and asked, Mom, is that garrison uncle going to beat someone up? The mother in line quickly covered her daughter's mouth and picked her up. Shoo, don't talk, or you'll get beaten too. Next to the armored vehicle, Huami frowned and looked up at Gong Yi. He is too fierce. But he cared about her, really, she felt it, cared about her on the basis of her life. Gongyi wiped the water off his short hair in annoyance and continued to yell at her. Huami, you should be fair. It's been so long. You know what the environment is like outside, right? What about you? You run around everywhere. In the morning, you are in B City, in the afternoon you go back to Xiang City, and in the evening you go to B City again. Are you a monkey? He never showed mercy when he scolded anyone, and he scolded Huami just like he scolded the garrison under his command. A Huami, who was called a monkey, frowned even more. Gong Yi was about to open his mouth to continue his fierce words, but when he saw Huami's expression was not right, he was stunned for a moment, and his tone instantly dropped 10 degrees. What's wrong with you? Is your stomach still not healed? Gong Yi held Huami's arm, put one hand gently on her slender back, patted it gently, and asked, You have so many medicines in your hand. Why don't you take your stomach medicine on time? It's okay. Huami vomited violently, and the bitter bile came out of her retching. I promise to send you a message wherever I go in the future, she gave Gong Yi assurances while retching. Gong Yi frowned tightly. He picked up Huami and ran towards the nanny car that Huami had parked not far away. Okay, stop making promises and get the medicine. Just as Huami was sent into the nanny car, 2 garrisons ran over and said, Report to the commander. The captain of the garrison in City B is here. Huami was placed on a bunk bed by Gong Yi. He frowned and turned his head, glanced at the garrison outside, and then looked at Huami. Huami, lying in a ball of soft light, looked pale and haggard, as if she would break if squeezed. She raised her eyelashes and said weakly, It's fine with me. Go do your thing. Call me when you want to go check out the B City supply depot. Gong Yi waved to the 2 guards outside the nanny car and frowned at Huami. What kind of stomach disease do you have? Why is it so scary every time it occurs? Well, actually Huami was half lying on the bed, not knowing how to tell the straight man that she was not having a stomach problem, but was pregnant. Is it necessary to say it? She has nothing to do with Gong Yi. Whether she is pregnant or not, it will not prevent her from clinging to Gong Yi, the career expert. Before she could figure it out, Gong Yi pulled the quilt from the bunk bed over Huami. Okay, I don't mean to be mean to you. You know I'm very busy. I have a lot of things to do and they all involve lives. So I don't have time to take care of you all the time. At times like this, everyone relies on self-awareness. Take medicine on time. If you have any questions, send a message or call me. The captain of the garrison in City B was waiting outside. The entire management level of Xiangcheng was controlled by his garrison inside the management building. Gong Yi didn't have time to be sentimental here. He turned and walked out. When he reached the car door, he turned back and added, I'll call you when I go to the supply warehouse later. As he spoke, the sharpness between his eyebrows seemed to fade a lot. Huami hummed softly, her eyes drooping, not knowing what she was thinking. After Gong Yi left, she got up and went to the bathroom to wash up, changed into loose and dry clothes, and planned to take a nap. Every time she fell asleep, she would stop harvesting the fruit trees in the backyard with one click. The oranges that hang on the branches every few minutes will fall off automatically when they are ripe. A few hours were enough for the oranges to turn into a wave and bury her supermarket. But Huami also has her own way. In fact, after the underground garage collapses and the garbage is cleared out, there will inevitably be a lot of broken roofs left behind. Huami ordered the contractor to repair the rest of the broken roof, leaving only a big hole under the supermarket's backyard. After Huami's modifications, once the oranges that fall from the orange trees accumulate to a certain number, they will fall into the hole and roll directly into the underground garage. This way, the garbage would not continue to pile up on the ground. Finally, when Huami woke up from a nap, she found that the supermarket was submerged in the orange waves. Tangyu would send garrisons to the underground garage every day to haul supplies. Huami also called the agricultural trade giant and asked him to stop sending the truck carrying live fish to Xiangcheng and go directly back to City B. In the nanny car, as it was getting late, Huami slept comfortably all night. In the middle of the night, the driver's seat of her RV was opened. Huami suddenly opened her eyes, spread out her fingers under the quilt, and held a boning knife in her hand. There was the sound of someone moving around outside the car window, and the passenger door was opened. Chi Chuan's voice came from the driver's seat. Captain Gong, do you want to wake up Sister Hua? She's awake. Gong Yi sat in the passenger seat because he couldn't hear Huami's breathing. The most extreme state of hibernation will cause a person to conceal even his breath. Huami must have woken up the moment Chi Chuan got in the car and was ready to hunt. Chi Chuan, who was sitting in the driver's seat, turned around in confusion and looked at Huami, who was sleeping on the bed behind the nanny car. Wake up? No way. He opened the car door very gently. Then I heard Gong Yi explain from the passenger seat, Ami, we are leaving for the supply warehouse in City B now. You can sleep for a while. I will call you when we get there. Huami was lying on the bed, motionless, without even opening her eyes. She relaxed her body slightly, and because she was sleepy during pregnancy, she soon fell asleep again. Ikegawa continued to be confused. Gong Yi, who was sitting in the passenger seat, took out his cell phone and looked at it, smiling with a curve of his lips. He heard Huami's long breathing, and she fell asleep again. I don't know how long the car drove, but on the dark road, one armored vehicle after another slowly moved forward. The car stopped, and there were the sounds of uniformed footsteps outside the window. Huami listened to the footsteps in a daze. Feeling at ease, she turned over and fell asleep again. When she got up after a good sleep, neither Chi Chuan nor Gong Yi were in her car. Huami washed up slowly, used mineral water to cook rice, and then slowly cooked a bag of pickled fish for herself. Enter. Huami walked to the small table where she was doing her homework, holding a disposable bowl and chopsticks in her hand, and served herself a bowl of rice. She then called Chi Chuan, have you eaten yet? Ike Chuan was drooling so much that he was too embarrassed to even mention it. He was just standing outside the door, waiting for Huami to invite him to dinner. He nodded with shining eyes, took the disposable bowl and chopsticks handed to him by Huami, and said, the road ahead is blocked, so it may not be so smooth to get the supplies. City B can't even provide a decent clearance team right now. Huami nodded, picked up a piece of boneless fish fillet from the small pot with the serving chopsticks. If it had gone that smoothly, the supplies from City B would have been taken away long ago, and there would be no need to wait until now. From Chi Chuan's words, Huami learned that Gong Yi had successfully found a place to garrison in City B. The situation of the garrison in City B was really miserable. When the earthquake first started, the garrison commander of City B committed suicide by shooting himself, and the entire garrison team in City B was in a disorganized state. Each captain did his own thing because the garrison could not enter the city without orders from their superiors and management, so some of them rescued outside the city, while others sneaked into the city to rescue. Some are responsible for both maintaining order and providing rescue services. Very busy. The result is that everyone is like a group of headless flies, with no organization, no plan, and no overall leader. Even the supply of materials became a big problem. As time went on, the entire garrison team in City B suffered the same fate as the police in City B, with fewer and fewer people and a large number of casualties. Even so, there was no effect. City B was still in chaos. Order was not maintained, and not many people were rescued. Even the garrisons, police, and survivors were on the verge of starvation. So, how many people are still stationed in City B? Huami ate a bowl of rice and felt it was not enough, so she ate another bowl. Her appetite was comparable to Chi Chuan's. Chi Chuan sat on the seat next to the door of the nanny car, separated from Huami by a small corridor, and he had finished his bowl of rice. But he didn't have the nerve to ask Huami for a second bowl of food, so he could only blink his eager eyes and continue. This is a secret of their garrison. I don't know, but I estimate that there are not many people. We were called by Commander Gong to get supplies. It is said that the supply warehouse in City B is very large. It may be even bigger than Xiangqing. So more people had to be found to transport them. Chi Chuan was helping Huami sell supplies at the gate of City B. His small trading gang had a total of more than a dozen people. Gong Yi's idea was to let Chi Chuan explore the way first, and then each of them would drive a supply truck to Xiangqing. But when I arrived, I found that the problem was much more serious than I had imagined. The supply warehouse in City B is now buried under a huge mountain of mud. It has to be dug out. Then I heard Chi Chuan say, "This is not a small project. We're setting up camp here today." Commander Gong has transferred more than a dozen trucks of supplies from Xiangqing to deal with it first. It seems that they are preparing for a long-term battle. Huami threw the disposable bowls and chopsticks into the trash can after eating, frowning. This doesn't look like it's going to be over any time soon. We have only just arrived at where we are. The location of the material warehouse has not been determined yet. The road is blocked, and several mountains ahead have collapsed. It is a huge project to accurately locate the material warehouse in City B. It would only be worthwhile if there were enough supplies in the warehouse. Gong Yi's excavation, which is costly and time-consuming, would be a big problem if only a tiny bit was found in the end. In the nanny car, Huami fell into deep thought and saw Chi Chuan turn to look at her with eyes full of mockery. Huami felt strange and raised her hand to touch her face. "What's with that look in your eyes?" "No, Sister Hua, your boyfriend seems to be in big trouble. Why aren't you worried at all?" Chi Chuan's face was filled with joy. He couldn't describe what his mentality was at the moment. Seeing that even a big figure like Gong Yi was at a loss when facing the vast mud mountain ahead. Huami is actually in the mood to cook fish here on a rainy day. Is there anything else in this world that can stump Sister Hua? Don't talk nonsense. I have nothing to do with him. Huami stood up and walked out of the nanny car and told Chi Chuan, who looked unconvinced, "Please notify Uncle Eight's clearance team and ask them to put down everything they are doing and come over here. I have something to do outside." After saying that, Huami hurriedly walked out of the camp. The garrison moved quickly, and a command center had been set up in the camp that was set up here overnight. Huami bypassed the headquarters and sent a message to Gong Yi. "Huami, I'll go clear the obstacles, you keep busy." She didn't send the message because she was afraid that the boss would be angry again. After she walked out of the command center carrying a shovel, she walked onto a path blocked by collapsed rocks and began to shovel the stones on the ground. With one shovelful, all the mud, stones, weeds, and trees that were as tall as a person disappeared. She didn't use any force at all. She just poked the shovel into the obstacle, and everything on the shovel would be recycled into the garbage station. Then it is converted into energy. Gong Yi was in the command center, looking at the sand table with a frown on his face. Standing beside him were 10 team leaders who were brought in from City B. They were all covered in dust and dirt. Some people were even injured. These were the captains of the B City garrison who were called over by Gong Yi. After a chaotic rescue operation, each of them led their own team. It was a blessing in disguise that 10 of them survived. Gong Yi, a tall and strong man, rested his hands on a makeshift sand table, listening to the report on casualties by the captain of the garrison in City B, reporting to Commander Gong, "I am the captain of the 3rd Battalion stationed in City B. Currently, there are 78 survivors in my team, 12 seriously injured, and 41 slightly injured." Reporting to Commander Gong, "I am the captain of the 6th Battalion stationed in City B. Currently, there are 59 survivors in my team, 23 seriously injured, and 25 slightly injured." Report to Commander Gong. It's really amazing. A city is standardly equipped with 5,000 garrisons, and this number is basically never filled up. The actual number of garrisons in each city is about 3,000 to 4,000. City B, together with the garrison which suffered serious or light injuries, was almost completely destroyed, with half of the soldiers killed. Gong Yi's brows were grim, and he cursed. He took out his cell phone, glanced at the text message from Huami, and put it back in his pocket. "All the injured will be loaded onto trucks and sent to City B. You will select 100 people to build a temporary rescue center in City B. Supplies will be transferred from the garrison in Xiangqing." One of the captains of the garrison in City B hesitated. "But Commander Gong, the garrison cannot enter the city without orders from above. I am your direct superior now. Either you follow my orders or you can take off your garrison skin and do whatever you need to do." Before he could finish his words, a garrison outside the command tent suddenly shouted, "Report to the commander. The road is open." No one can explain how the road is connected. The garrison only knew that Hua Mi's amateur tow truck team had arrived not long ago. 10 tow trucks drove onto the path, and soon the path was open. Everyone was very happy, because everyone knows that if they want to take the national highway, they have to clear the collapsed mountain in front. With the current manpower and material resources, even if they work 24 hours a day, it will take at least a week. The key point is that the world is so big, and there are too many places that need to be garrisoned. The two cities of Xiangqing and City B only have so few movable garrisons in total. Spending a week or so here will delay a lot of things. This is just the first obstacle. There are still many obstacles from here to the material warehouse in City B. Gong Yi looked at the garrison who came to report the news, his face full of joy. Then, Gong Yi silently took out the mobile phone from his pocket and looked at the time when Hua Mi sent him a message. It was undisguised weirdness. She was even too lazy to respond to him perfunctorily. "Commander?" The garrison nearby called out to Gong Yi. He came back to his senses, put the phone back in his pocket, and cleared his throat. This civilian clearance team has gone through untold hardships and finally used their own strength to help us solve the first roadblock. The next battle needs to be fought by ourselves. Tell the brothers to cheer up and never let down those who support us wholeheartedly. In the command tent, all the garrison stood up straight, stretched their bodies like a flag, and answered in a sonorous and powerful voice. Yes. The newly built campsite was quickly closed down, and everyone quickly got into the car, took the small road, bypassed the first roadblock on the national highway, and prepared to go to the second roadblock to begin the arduous work of clearing obstacles. Just as Commander Gong said, the civilian clearance team used their weak strength to help them get there, and they need to work harder. The armored convoy led the way. Gong Yi sat in the armored vehicle and silently looked at the amateur tow clearance team that had just arrived in front and was happily shoveling mud. The path had been cleared and the lane was not wide, but it was wide enough for an armored vehicle to pass through. Seeing the armored vehicles coming, the uncles and aunts who were widening the lane happily lined up on both sides of the lane and waved to the armored convoy. They were still waiting for the garrison to award them an award. Gong Yi lowered his head and rubbed his forehead. You don't know until you see it. After seeing it, he felt ashamed of himself. Look at Hua Mi's clearance team. The average age of each member is no less than 40 years old, and there is also a 65-year-old Sherdyedia. He was wearing a thin-down jacket for autumn and winter in the south, and a raincoat made of waterproof oilcloth on the outside. He didn't even have a professional tow clearance suit. There are no high-end obstacle removal tools. There are no jacks, tow trucks, or excavators. The only things they had were a few shovels and 10 tow trucks that were cobbled together and had already passed their scrap age. Although this is just a small path, how can an amateur obstacle clearance team clear obstacles faster than the garrison troops? Gong, how do you want me to explain this to the outside world? Hua Mi was sitting at the end of the path at the corner to take a break when she suddenly received this message from Gong Yi. Hua Mi. Looking at the dialogue box between her and Gong Yi, the words the other party is typing were displayed at the top. Hua Mi turned around and released a nanny car from the level 13 warehouse and continued driving forward. Gong Yi, the speed of clearing obstacles is too fast. You should pay attention to the impact. His messages continued to come, which made Hua Mi smile. The man's reaction surprised her. Hua Mi thought about covering up her own supplies under the pretext of stockpiling supplies for the garrison. In fact, she did so, and has been doing well so far. Although Qin Ziren and Yu Guanglin noticed her supplies, they did not suspect anything supernatural. The cover-up was successful. But there is no paper that can cover fire, and she lives among the crowd, so it is impossible for her to cover everyone's eyes. If you hide it from everyone, it will delay things. If she doesn't want to delay things, she has to find someone to cover for her. So it was within Hua Mi's expectation that Gong Yi would discover the abnormality. She had already thought about what she should say when Gong Yi asked her. Yes, so what if she has superpowers? Superpowers are something that not everyone has, but they are definitely not uncommon in the apocalypse. With Gong Yi's physical fitness, there is a high chance that he will have supernatural powers. No, It is very likely that Gong Yi is already in the process of awakening his supernatural powers. She remembered the last time Gong Yi held her down and asked her to sit in the tent to rest and wait to see a doctor. She was completely unable to resist his strength. People with special abilities are much stronger than ordinary people and have better physical fitness. Huami is also very strong now. But there are also differences in power between people with special abilities. So, Huami's strength and LT. Gong Yi's strength. Huami has already thought of disguising herself as a person with spatial abilities. Among the superpowers, the space superpower is relatively popular and is one of the essential members of the team that goes out to fight monsters and search for supplies. She thought of all her excuses and waited for Gong Yi to ask. In the end, Gong Yi didn't ask, but asked her to pay attention to the impact and said in a roundabout way that she was too honest and didn't even bother to use any tricks. Huami did not reply to the message. Instead, she drove the car forward with a smile on her face. She cleared the obstacles along the way. After the obstacles on the small road were cleared, she cleared the obstacles on the national highway. After the obstacles on the national highway were cleared, she took the small road again. Until the energy of the level 10 factory is fully charged. Unlock the 4th level of the garbage recycling station and get the sweeping robot X3 when a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X8. Huami then stopped and placed the 4 sweeping robots in the 13-level storage into the forest where the trees had fallen. She sat in the nanny car, enjoying the conversion of X6 times energy, and slowly began to make lunch. In the armored convoy that had a smooth journey, Gong Yi rubbed his brows with a headache and gave orders with a wireless communicator. Drive slower. Be careful of mudslides. He was afraid that their team was driving too fast, and after catching up with Huami, he found that Huami had 3 heads and 6 arms. Huami did not feel his fear. She sat in the nanny car, eating pickled fish and sending a message to Yirong. Huami, how is the waterlogging in Xiangqing?
Yirong, video mepege Yirong, picture.
JPG from Yirong's videos and pictures. We can see that the water in Xiangqing has already reached the calves. The water became more and more solid, making people feel as if they were standing in thick rice paste. Huami frowned when she saw this and did some searching online, hoping to see if there were any class representatives online who could explain what was going on. Huami, is there any solution for Yu Guanglin? If this continues before leaving Xiangqing, Huami told Yu Guanglin and others that they should pay attention to the accumulated water in Xiangqing. As a result, the water level has now reached my calves. It's rising too fast. Yirong, all management levels are stationed in the management building. Don't you know? You asked Tang Yu to do this. At the beginning, among the garrison, only the team led by Tang Yu defeated Yu Guanglin and a group of Xiangqing senior management officials. Not only was he beaten, he was also locked up. Later, the entire Xiangqing management level jumped out and gathered in front of the management building to demand an explanation. Tang Yu caught one whenever he saw one, and caught 2 whenever he saw 2. He locked them all up in the management building. You have to know that there are thousands of people working in the management building, not to mention those who have run away, and those who are providing services on the periphery. Xiangqing is not that chaotic now, everything is still basically in order. So the garrison is indeed a bit abrupt and attracts people's attention. The nearest rescue center was talking about this incident, but because the signal in Xiangqing was intermittent, the news did not spread. Huami was silent for a while, looking at the text messages on her phone. Huami, I don't mean to say that we must distinguish right from wrong in this matter. Yu Guanglin and the others are locked up in the management building. Does that mean they can't do anything? Huami, in my opinion, if they don't wander around, their work efficiency will be improved. In this matter, Huami tricked Gong Yi, but she felt that it was not a big problem. Anyway, this is the historical process of the survivors. No matter how the management jumps around, those who have the advantage in terms of military force will eventually rise to the top. She just accidentally advanced the process by many years. Yirong. That being said, I haven't heard what plan they will come up with yet. Many people in Xiangqing have heard that City B also has supplies for sale, so they are planning to go to City B. Everyone said that the waterlogging in Xiangqing was abnormal, so people carried their supplies and started running towards City B instead of Xiangqing. The Hunan B Expressway is never smooth. Just when Huami was about to scold Yu Guanglin for staying in the management building and doing nothing, Yi Rong sent her another video. A magical thing happened. There was no water in the places that were vacuumed, and there was still jelly-like water in the places that were not vacuumed. This makes the entire ground appear uneven. Yi Rong, look, if this situation is not resolved, it will be too late to find a solution when the water reaches the neck. In fact, it is already too late to realize the seriousness of this problem, because people who are not wearing respirators will, without exception, enter the emergency area due to respiratory distress. Huami's respirators are sold out. Huami, don't count on Yu Guanglin. We should line up and hold on to the garrison. If you have nothing to do recently, just go to the stalls and buy vacuum cleaners, electric fans, and the like when you see them selling them. Huami, you initiate a transfer of 100,000 yuan after Yi Rong received the money. Huami asked Yi Rong to pile all the newly purchased electrical appliances in the warehouse behind the RV supermarket. She will collect it later when she returns. Not long after, Huami waited for the armored convoy to arrive. The road ahead is clear. If we continue along this road, we will be out of the territory of City B and past the area of the City B material warehouse. Gong Yi got out of the car and stared at Huami with a pair of sharp eyes, like two knives. She was walking around her nanny car in a raincoat. When she saw Gong Yi coming over, she raised her hand and greeted him. Where is the supply depot you mentioned? Pinpointing the dig site. Gong Yi walked up to Huami, opened his mouth, and finally raised his hand and pushed her forehead. Let me see what you are up to. Fortunately, the garrisons under his command kept their mouths shut. The armored convoy led the way, and the hundreds of garrisons from City B that followed behind didn't see what was happening in the front. And the garrison will not talk nonsense. They are genuinely curious, but they also know when to stop and won't ask questions that they shouldn't. Huami's head was pushed back. She laughed and said to Gong Yi, I have something to report to you. As she spoke, she took out her cell phone and showed Gong Yi the video that Yi Rong had sent her. Gong Yi's brows were tightly furrowed. After watching several videos and photos, he turned around, took out his mobile phone, and prepared to make a call. He turned back and told Huami, don't run around, or you won't be able to find your people again. While he was on the phone, he arranged for the garrison to survey the terrain, found the gate of the material warehouse in City B, and began digging. There were more and more garrisons on the national highway. After a while, Chichuan arrived in Huami's nanny car and Huami's tow clearance team. After Chichuan stopped the nanny car and jumped out of the car, he pointed to another brand new nanny car on the open space and asked exaggeratedly, Sister Hua, how many nanny cars do you have? If you lose one, you can get another one? Huami Xiao was just about to find an excuse to fool Chichuan when Gong Yi's roar came from the front. If you don't want to do it, then don't do it. You're smarter than a sieve. If you administrators can't come up with a solution before I return to the city, I'll kill you all. He was really furious. He called Yu Guanglin to ask about the serious flooding in Xiangqing. Yu Guanglin told him that they would not do anything unless their administrators were released. Then he argued with him about the right and wrong of mutiny, accusing him of having evil ambitions. Gong Yi had never thought of mutiny, and he was not interested in the top position in Xiangqing, but if Yu Guanglin disobeyed, Gong Yi would not mind making it a reality. On the other end of the phone, Yu Guanglin was angry and afraid. Gong Yi, you finally revealed your true colors, right? The person called Huami was just a cover for you. This was the excuse you instigated. Now, everything is going as you wished. Why didn't I realize that Gong Yi was so insidious before? In fact, it was all a conspiracy. It was all Gong Yi's conspiracy. He had wanted to make trouble for a long time, so he started hoarding a large amount of supplies from no one knew when. Just in time to take advantage of the natural disaster and make the arrangements quietly. And the girl named Huami was just a target released by Gong Yi to attract the attention of the administrators. Since he wanted to prove the mutiny, Gong Yi didn't care what Yu Guanglin said to him. He just didn't want Yu Guanglin to do nothing. If we delay any further, The water in Xiangqing will reach our noses. If it were normal water, you could swim, find some kayaks, or even get a boat and row out of Xiangqing. But even a dog's eyes can see that the water is very strange. The key point is that if they escape from Xiangqing, and after Xiangqing is flooded, there is no guarantee that it will not spread to other cities. Will all be over. Gong Yi frowned, looked at the misty rain ahead, gritted his teeth, and said hatefully, "You Guanglin, do something practical. Look outside your window. The world has changed. You are still concerned about who is in power. Why do I keep you here? Keep you here, so that you can eat and not work? What's wasted is just the food I worked so hard to stockpile." Huami frowned slightly and walked towards Gong Yi. In fact, the management is slow in doing things and cannot adapt to the fast pace of the apocalypse. This has occurred in every city in the early days of the apocalypse. That's why she told you Guanglin that they should do what they should do, otherwise they wouldn't know which would come first, bullets or disaster. The truth is that in peacetime, the management cannot solve problems quickly enough. Huami could imagine what the procedures of the management were. Initial disaster reports were ignored because of other things, and then, once they were taken seriously, they were repeatedly verified by multiple experts. Then they held various meetings, and when asked, they said they were still studying, investigating, and discussing plans. After repeated discussions on solutions, the golden period has passed, and the perfect solution has not yet emerged. This eventually aroused the anger of the survivors, and countless administrators were killed. Xiangqing hasn't reached that stage yet, but it will probably be there soon. History is always surprisingly similar. In a chaotic world, nothing works. The barrel of a gun is the most effective. Before Huami could walk to Gong Yi's side, she saw Gong Yi hanging up the phone with Yu Guanglin. He called Tang Yu and said, "Stop feeding Yu Guanglin and his group. If they don't work, let them starve. When they can't stand the hunger anymore, they will naturally start working." Then he called Chao Feng again. "Go and ask Ke Minghong what he needs. Give him whatever he wants. People who are willing to work should be treated well. Also, take control of Xiangqing's reserve funds and material depots by force. The management system is unreliable, and things have come to this point." Gong Yi immediately plans to initiate a mutiny. Directly seize management rights. He does what Yu Guanglin doesn't do. He takes care of things that Yu Guanglin doesn't care about. Huami behind him paused. The boss was indeed the boss. He was very straightforward. It's only been a few months, and we've reached this stage. Gong Yi frowned and said, "All the professional talents who can be named should be controlled, especially those who have developed literary talent and are good at writing. For example, those online writers are the best at insulting people in a veiled way." Gong Yi wanted to seize the management rights of Xiangqing, and he expected that he would be scolded. A few scoldings would not hurt him much, but in an extraordinary period, he had to convince the people. If he was scolded too much, the survivors would become impetuous. Chao Feng replied on the other end of the phone, "Yes, what if those online writers want to resist? Give him a beating first." Gong Yi hung up the phone, turned around with a stern face, glared at Huami, and asked fiercely, "What are you looking at?" Huami smiled at Gong Yi. "Boss, I'm sorry for getting you into trouble." She didn't expect that Tang Yu would listen to her so much. She asked Tang Yu to lock up Yu Guanglin and others, and Tang Yu actually did it. Huami felt a little guilty towards Gong Yi. But just like she said, it's not a big problem. Gong Yi is such a decisive person. He would reach this step sooner or later even without her encouragement.
Gong Yi snorted coldly.
Don't think he couldn't see that although Huami said sorry, her attitude was somewhat smug. "When we get back to Xiangqing, I'll tie you up and send you directly to the garrison headquarters. I'll say that you're the one who did all this and have them shoot you first." He spoke harshly, looking at Huami with a pair of sharp eyes. People with bad tempers are hateful to both God and man. Huami walked over fearlessly. "A little naughty, boss. Don't be like this. I am still very useful. We are grasshoppers tied to the same rope now. We share the honor and disgrace, boss." She was not worried that Gong Yi would hand her over. If he was the kind of person who could not take responsibility, Huami would not stand on his side. Moreover, The mutiny in the Xiangqing garrison happened several days ago, and the garrison headquarters has been pursuing the responsibility. If Gong Yi wanted to hand over Huami, he would have handed her over long ago. He would not allow Huami to stand in front of him with a frivolous smile on her face. Not only did he not hand over Huami, but when faced with Yu Guanglin's accusation that Huami was just a cover for him and that Gong Yi had actually been secretly planning a mutiny, Gong Yi did not refute a word. He admitted it. Yes, everything Huami did was instructed by him. Just take care of everything on him. Don't focus on a woman. He's the one who did it. Therefore, it is hard not to make people dependent on a man like Gong Yi. He was as tall as a big tree, standing tall and protecting everyone under the tree. Huami came over, nudged Gong Yi with her elbow, and laughed. "Thank you, big boss." Gong Yi couldn't help but curl his lips. Then he straightened his face, pushed Huami's body forward, and looked disgusted. "Who will share honor and disgrace with you? You are not a garrison under my command. Stand up straight. What are you doing? Everyone is watching you." His voice became smaller and smaller, and finally, he pursed his lips and stopped talking angrily. This scumbag girl used the same trick last time. She coaxed him with sweet words, saying that she fell in love with him at first sight and wanted to date him. She also stuffed a lot of money into his pocket, saying that she wanted to buy him delicious food, nice clothes, and some health supplements. After stuffing the money into his pocket, she hugged him and kissed and nibbled him. He was so excited that he stayed up all night, thinking that he and his dream lover had a telepathic connection. How could he, a hot-blooded man, not take action when being teased like this by his dream girl? He fell into the trap of this bad woman. Not afraid of being laughed at, Gong Yi thought a lot that night and even decided what to name their child. As a result, when they met again the next day, the scumbag girl had completely forgotten about him. "Let me tell you, I have a good way to solve the problem of waterlogging in Xiangqing." The scumbag girl next to him suddenly straightened her expression. "You don't have to be so anxious. You can do everything slowly. Strawberry flavor." Gong Yi's eyes were deep as he looked at the box of condoms that Huami handed over. She didn't notice Gong Yi's thoughtful expression at all, because Huami was very open-minded and had no thoughts at all. "Look, use this thing to put the jelly like water in, tie the opening tightly, and then throw it into the landfill, just like throwing away garbage." She still has more than 100,000 boxes of condoms, as well as any plastic bags, balloons, etc. that can be found in Xiangqing. As long as they are well sealed and do not let the jelly water leak out, they can be used. Gong Yi looked at Huami with an indescribable look. She spoke with great joy, without any shyness at all. Huami forgot. She forgot everything that happened that night. Gong Yi suddenly had a bad idea in his heart and said with revenge, "You suddenly took out this thing, and I thought you remembered what happened that night. I wore it at first, but you were having fun and tore it off yourself. Did you forget it?" After saying that, the corners of his mouth curled up, and he looked at Huami's reaction with a kind of badness that he couldn't even explain. She was stunned, blinked her fox eyes, and looked at Gong Yi. "Seems a little confused." Gong Yi's smile got bigger. He came close to Huami and said word by word, "Your idea is great, but are you sure you have that many condoms? With so much water accumulated in Xiangqing, a few condoms won't be enough." Huami's thoughts were still on what Gong Yi had said just now. Did she tear it off herself? What happened that night? Huami tilted her head back. "No way. Daddy duck?" She blurted out, and seeing Gong Yi was stunned for a moment, she shuddered immediately. Why did Gong Yi not do what he wanted to do, as a duck? Did she misunderstand Gong Yi's meaning? Before Gong Yi could speak, she quickly laughed it off. "I have a lot of condoms, hundreds of thousands of boxes, enough to hold a lot of jelly water. This thing can be used in emergencies while you find a way to release the flood. The key is emergency use." After saying that, Huami turned around hurriedly and said, "Think about it. When you're done, come to me to get the goods.
Bye."
She was so scared that she ran away quickly. Gong Yi's obvious and covert hints made her panic. In fact, she had already noticed it, hadn't she? Look at Gong Yi. He had hinted to her several times, but she herself thought it was impossible and didn't associate Gong Yi with the little duck that night. But in this world, what is impossible? Everything is possible, and trying to make things so clear is not necessarily a good thing. Huami fled in panic, completely unaware of Gong Yi's gradually deepening eyes behind her. It was raining in City B, and the rain was thick with fog, so the visibility was only 20 meters. At this time, goggles have become a must-have item for garrisoning. Nowadays, respirators, goggles, and raincoats made of waterproof tarpaulin are standard equipment for garrisons. These things may look small, but it must be said that having these things has helped the garrison a lot. At least in this kind of weather, they can accurately locate the location of the material depot in City B. Joyful laughter broke out in the makeshift command tent. Someone ran into the rain and shouted, "Found it! Found it, Commander! Found it!" In the open space, Ikegawa and the clearance team also laughed happily. A city's material warehouse was stored according to the city's population before the disaster. Generally speaking, it can meet the per capita food needs of a city for half a year. This is without any extravagance. After the disaster, there will definitely be casualties among the city's population. If they can save food, the food will be enough for the remaining survivors to eat for several years. Xiangqing's free 3 meals a day plus 2 snacks are truly luxurious. If the food is eaten the way it is in Xiangqing, even if there are few survivors, they won't be able to survive for long, not to mention that the food is provided free of charge. Qi Chuan followed Gong Yi and walked towards Huami's nanny car. Huami was sitting in the nanny car, taking out a few folic acid pills and vitamins needed during pregnancy. There was a pile of medicine on the table. The world is so big, and she is fully capable of raising her 2 cubs beautifully on her own. Suddenly, Gong Yi was standing outside her car. He raised his head and said, "Let's go to the supply warehouse." Huami's hand trembled, and she looked at the duckling Gong Yi with an extremely awkward smile. Gong Yi watched Huami jumping around with a playful expression on his face. He never expected that the person she thought she was going to have a one-night stand with would show up again. Or the kind she couldn't get rid of. Let's see what she does. Then, Gong Yi looked at the pile of medicine on Huami's table. He frowned and asked, "You need to take so many medicines for your stomach problem?" Huami stood up, put on her raincoat, got out of the car, and looked at Qi Chuan. Qi Chuan was standing behind Gong Yi, looking at her with an ambiguous expression. "And you still say that there is no relationship between her and Gong Yi? Look how much Commander Gong cares about her." Huami ignored Qi Chuan's ambiguous look and asked, "Let's go. Where is the supply depot? Let's go and take a look." Gong Yi leaned against the car door, his eyes fell on folic acid, and helped Huami close the door. "Come with me." He took Huami and Qi Chuan onto an armored vehicle and drove forward until they arrived at a group of hills. This time, out of the 50 garrisons brought by Gong Yi, he assigned 20 of them to guard the city gate with live ammunition. The other 30 were all brought here, and were now digging the mud outside the supply warehouse together with the several hundred garrisons in City B. The door is made of thick iron and is extremely tall. At least someone like Ikegawa, who has been engaged in small-time speculation for years, would be shocked when he saw it. In the rain, a heavy sound was heard, as if a sealed space was opened. Several garrisons worked together and shouted as they opened the thick iron door. The B City Supply warehouse officially appeared before everyone. The entire mountain is under the material storage of City B. Gong Yi stood beside Huami, and the two of them faced the deep and seemingly bottomless material warehouse in City B. The fully armed garrison quickly threw a searchlight inside. "No danger, go in." There is a backup power supply inside, and because there is a cold storage, it is also equipped with a large number of generator sets. The lights in the warehouse were turned on. Huami followed Gong Yi into the warehouse. When she looked up, she found that the ceiling of the warehouse was a bit exaggeratedly high. The material warehouse in City B is 10 times larger than the one in Xiangqing. Gong Yi walked in front, explaining, and then turned back to look at Huami and Qi Chuan, who looked like they had never seen the world. He said, "Now these supplies are in my hands. Next, I need someone to help me transport these supplies away." He needs to transport these supplies to Xiangqing and City B. But Gong Yi did not have enough manpower to transport such a large warehouse of supplies in a short period of time. Especially at this time, the number of garrison troops in Xiangqing was less than 4,000, and most of them were used to maintain public security in Xiangqing. The garrison in City B can be used, but there are only a few hundred of them. After he returned to Xiangqing, he still had a tough battle to fight with Yu Guanglin. There is no time to take care of these supplies. As he spoke, Gong Yi's gaze fell on Huami obviously. He wanted to let Huami handle this matter. No matter how she did it, the fact was that she handled the large amounts of supplies that came in and out of her hands every day with ease. Huami forced a smile at Gong Yi, but was secretly frightened. The level 13 storage doesn't have that much space. If she cleared out some of the supplies in her level 13 warehouse, she could take away the entire B City supply depot in one go. But no, she is also very embarrassed. Oranges took up most of the space in her level 13 storage. Even if Huami squeezed X100,000 orange juices every day, she still couldn't keep up with the increasing number of oranges. The accelerated growth period for oranges is 1 month and only a few days have passed, but now almost everyone in Xiangqing and City B has a bag of oranges. Just eat like this. In fact, people from Xiangqing and B City don't need to eat or drink water at all. I'll feel full just by eating oranges. There are too many oranges, but consumption is not keeping up. Where can we get the space to help Gong Yi transport the supplies from City B and preserve them properly? Gong Yi walked back to Huami, his sharp eyes looking at her intently, as if coaxing her. If you have any requests, just ask. Well, Huami looked up with an embarrassed look on her face, looking at Gong Yi's handsome face. You garrison, each person eats 10,000 oranges a day. Is this request okay?
Puff.
Ikegawa on the side couldn't help but laugh out loud. The gentleness on Gong Yi's face suddenly turned ugly. When he mentioned Jizzy, he and Huami no longer had any friendship. No need to discuss this. I can transfer Chao Feng and Tang Yu over to help you. After saying that, Gong Yi glanced at the multifunctional watch on his hand, and then told Huami, I still have to rush back to Xiangqing. The garrison here will stay to protect you and these supplies. Call me if you have anything. The last remaining food supplies in Xiangqing have been taken control of by the garrison, but Yu Guanglin refused to hand over the account password of Xiangqing's reserve funds. Gong Yi had to go back to Xiangqing to take charge of the situation. Looking at Gong Yi's back as he walked away, Huami stood in the warehouse full of supplies and sighed softly. Sister Hua, are you reluctant? Qi Chuan teased her. Let's finish our work here quickly, and we'll be able to return to Xiangqing soon.
Huami glanced at Qi Chuan.
She couldn't explain it to him clearly, right? There was really nothing between her and Gong Yi. Maybe they had that crazy night before. But a one-night stay between adults should not involve any pink bubble fantasies. Huami is no longer at the age of longing for romantic love. After one night, everyone goes their own way, and not disturbing each other is the greatest decency. Get down to business. Huami rolled her eyes at the smiling Qi Chuan. Qi Chuan immediately opened his mouth and took out a notebook and a calculator. Okay, let's get down to business. Sister Hua, should we start counting the number of material warehouses in City B now? We need to figure out how many supplies we have and what they are. We can eat the excess first and find other ways to stockpile the less. Ikegawa is well aware of this. Huami shook her head. Go find a few trucks and haul a few truckloads of supplies to City B to sell. Go to City B to sell? Qi Chuan looked strange. Sister Hua, at this time, are we still making money?
He didn't say that.
In fact, the money in City A is no longer money. The same is true for City B. Except for Xiangqing, everyone treats money as paper. As long as they can buy supplies, money doesn't matter. But this value system still counts in Huami. Qi Chuan even had some vague illusions. He always felt that because Sister Hua could still use money to buy supplies, Xiangqing's value system had not collapsed. But how could she spend all the money she had collected? Huami didn't explain anything, but patted Qi Chuan's shoulder with a serious look on her face, turned around, and walked to the innermost part of the B City material warehouse alone. Gong Yi did not leave her many garrisons, and with such a large material warehouse, the limited manpower was simply not enough to count the number of supplies. not to mention transporting these supplies out of this warehouse. However, Huami can store the materials into level 13 storage and can directly obtain the types and quantities of the materials. Avoiding Sichuan and the other garrisons, Huami put the large wooden boxes in front of him into the level 13 storage. Obtained 25 kg x 50 of Dongting Lake rice, get glutinous rice dumplings x 500, get iodized salt 320 g 50 packs x 10,000. After she collected the wooden boxes, she left a pile of oranges on the spot. After Sichuan urgently found a few trucks, Huami called on the garrison in City B for help and shoveled the oranges onto the trucks. Then she called Fang Yuqi, the captain of the garrison in City B, and Huami said, "I heard Commander Gong asked you to set up a rescue center in City B, right?" Fang Yuqi nodded with a straight face. "Yes, Sister Hua." He shouted along with the Xiangqing garrison. The Xiangqing garrison all called her Huami, so the B City garrison also called her that. "Okay, you are all Commander Gong's men now, so the benefits should be the same as those of the Xiangqing garrison. Let me tell you what benefits the Xiangqing garrison has." Huami seemed very serious and said directly, "Every garrison in Xiangqing will receive 100 welfare oranges every day. This is specially set by Commander Gong. Being stationed is very hard, and you need to supplement more vitamin C. So from today on, the same applies to you garrisons in B City. I will set up a material storage point next to the rescue center in City B. Each of you can go there to collect 100 welfare oranges every day." The more she spoke, the more Fang Yuqi's eyes widened in disbelief, and then his face turned into ecstasy.
This.
Although they suffered a lot while garrisoning in City B, with most of them killed or injured, they also had to go hungry and save people every day. But does happiness come so unexpectedly? Are 100 oranges a day really free? At this time, Fang Yuqi still felt a sense of joy at having survived a calamity. After all, he had been hungry for so long and had saved so many people like a pile of scattered sand. Not only was there someone to take care of us, but even the problem of food and clothing was solved. Although it's just eating oranges, it's better than eating nothing. Huami added with a smile, 3 meals a day are also provided. Mine is just a welfare orange. Fang Yuqi looked at Huami in surprise. Sister Hua, there's no need to be so troublesome. Supplies are very tight right now. We all know that. We can live frugally. Just give us 1 meal a day. Fang Yuqi understands the current situation better than anyone else. After all, they had experienced hunger and poor sleep when they were stationed in City B. 1 piece of biscuit could last them a whole day, and 1 piece of bread could feed an entire team. Each person took a bite, and everyone was afraid that they would take too much, and the people behind them would have nothing to eat. After going through such hardships, look at the oranges in the material warehouse in City B. Each one is fresh and tender, as if they were just picked from the tree. If a person can get 2 oranges every day, even just 2, they will have nothing else to ask for. So, let's leave the 3 meals a day for those in need. Huami waved her hand. No matter how hard it is, I won't let you suffer. Don't worry, leave this to me. I will be responsible for the procurement of supplies for Commander Gong's team. It will be enough for you to have enough food and clothing. After she said that, Fang Yuqi didn't know what to say. I hope Commander Gong knows what Sister Hua is doing, and it won't disrupt Commander Gong's plans. At this time, Fang Yuqi still didn't have a correct understanding of what Huami said. He was simply following instructions. Truckload after truckload of oranges were sent out from the supply warehouse to Xiangqing and City B and sold to the survivors. It is said that the sales are very good, everyone is eating oranges, and everyone can afford oranges. Soon, the cooking team in charge of the garrison's meals came over, dragging large pots of rice and vegetables. Following the kitchen team were Tang Yu and Chao Feng. They were ordered to come and help Sister Hua, but as soon as they arrived, they were pulled away by Sichuan to help count oranges for the garrison in City B. Huami moved the supplies here and there, and except for the rows of supplies placed at the entrance of the supply warehouse, all the supplies were put into the level 13 storage. Then, she filled the supply warehouse in City B with oranges. Ikegawa's friends pulled out the oranges with a large cart and distributed them one by one to the garrison in City B, who were guarding outside the supply warehouse. 100 per person. Standing in front of a pile of oranges, the garrisons of City B were holding a pile of delicious food in their hands. They fell into deep thought. Should they really be given 100 welfare oranges each? But now their stomachs are full, and they feel a little bloated. A garrison officer walked up to Fang Yuqi and said, "Captain, we can't finish all these oranges in one day. Will you really give us 100 oranges tomorrow?" Fang Yuqi looked at Tang Yu in a panic. "Brother, can we refuse this benefit?" "Yes, even if we are full, we can't afford so many oranges." Tang Yu took out a document with familiarity. "Don't worry. There is a process for all your troubles in Xiangqing. This is a document that entrusts the sale of fully oranges to others. Just check who among you wants to entrust the sale of fully oranges and have them sign the document. Everything has to follow procedures. After all, it is a team of more than 5,000 people. Each garrison receives 100 welfare oranges every day, which is actually a disguised way of giving the garrison money to spend." Fang Yuqi took the pen, signed the document decisively, and passed the document to the next brother stationed in City B. He sighed, "Your Xiangqing commander Gong is really capable." "We are." Thinking of the garrison commander of City B who committed suicide by shooting himself, Fang Yuqi sighed endlessly. When disaster strikes, no one is prepared. Even the garrisons are unprepared. But there is no harm without comparison. The garrison in City B is starving to death, while the garrison in Xiangqing is wealthy and is receiving welfare in disguise. Sometimes I don't want to complain, but when the brothers around me die one by one, Fang Yuqi will also fantasize. If their commander didn't commit suicide, would he try every means to get them material support? Would he also slam the table and fight against the management system in order to save a few brothers from dying? Tang Yu patted Fang Yuqi's shoulder. "We are a family now. Whatever we have in Xiangqing Garrison, you will also have in B City Garrison. Our lives will become more and more secure." At the door of the supply warehouse, Ikegawa was squatting and eating with his friends. Some friends were very curious and asked Qichuan secretly, "Why do we have so many oranges in Xiangqing? There are also oranges in B City. The supply warehouse in B City is also full of oranges?" Ikegawa pondered for a moment and said to his friend, "There must have been an orange disaster in the world before the earthquake, so the management of City B could only hoard oranges like crazy. Only this explanation can explain why the entire supply warehouse in City B is full of oranges." Qichuan lowered his head and took 2 bites of rice, then said to his friends, "Don't think too much. If the sky falls, there will be someone taller to hold it up. Let's just help Sister Hua sell oranges. With such a large warehouse full of oranges, I wonder how many trips it would take to transport them out." After Huami replaced all the supplies in the warehouse with oranges, she sent a message to Gong Yi and was preparing to return to Xiangqing. Uncle 8 suddenly rushed into the warehouse and shouted to Huami, who was sitting in a rocking chair by the door and looking at her phone, "It's bad, Miss Hua. The mountains on both sides of the supply warehouse are collapsing." Before he finished speaking, Qichuan and his friends rolled in, followed by Chao Feng, Tang Yu, Fang Yuqi, and others who were stationed there. "Sister Hua, let's go quickly, otherwise everyone will be crushed in the mudslide."
Gao Feng spoke anxiously.
They had long thought that the mountain here was unstable. But it was too unfortunate that the mountains on both sides of the material warehouse collapsed at the same time. Huami stood up from the rocking chair slowly. "It's okay, I'll go out and take a look. You guys go, do what you need to do." As she was about to go outside, she was stopped by Tang Yu. He stood up straight and said, "Sister Hua, we promised the commander that we would protect you well. Let's go quickly. There is still time to leave now. The mountains on both sides are moving, but they will not fall down soon." But before Chao Feng could finish his words, everyone felt the ground beneath their feet shaking, and behind Tang Yu and Chao Feng, mud, trees, and weeds were falling down. 2 mudslides and an earthquake did not allow them any chance to leave. Huami just hurriedly shouted to Chao Feng and Tang Yu, "Call all the garrisons in quickly." Fang Yuqi blew the assembly whistle, and hundreds of garrisons emerged from different directions, rushing towards the supply warehouse. When the last garrison rushed into the warehouse, Chao Feng and Tang Yu simultaneously exerted force to close the heavy iron door. Before the door was closed tightly, mud came in from the gap, like a monster extending its tentacles and squeezing the heavy iron door open bit by bit.
Ah!
Come and help, Chao Feng shouted, and Feng Yuqi rushed over immediately, and together with Chao Feng and Tang Yu, they pushed the iron door shut. Everyone come! Feng Yuqi used all his strength and roared with his teeth bared. Dozens of garrisons rushed forward and held the big iron gate together, trying their best to use their meager manpower to resist the devastating collapse of the two mountains. There were still several hundred soldiers stationed in City B who could not squeeze through the iron gate and could only watch anxiously as the mud rushed into the cracks in the gate. Huami stood behind everyone, looking at the magnificent scene in front of her, then lowered her head to look at the mud that had buried her ankles. She moved her feet in long boots, and the mud 1 meter around her was recycled into the garbage station. It was spotlessly clean, without a speck of dust, and even the original color of the warehouse floor was revealed. But soon, new mud covered it, and Huami continued to collect the mud calmly. No one in front noticed her. The gap in the door was getting wider and wider. Tang Yu roared, "Quick! Notify the commander urgently. We are about to be buried." Human power cannot resist the power of nature, because nature is too powerful. But there are still more than half of the oranges in this supply warehouse that have not been shipped out, so we have to notify the commander and dig out the oranges at least after the landslide stops. A garrison standing in front of Huami was holding a radio and preparing to find a safe place to send a message. Turning around, he saw Huami. In the dimly lit warehouse, she stood cleanly and tidily under a dim light, with no specks of dust behind her or under her feet. There really wasn't any mud at all. "I have already informed Commander Gong. There is no need to send a telegram." Huami lied with her eyes open and smiled at the garrison carrying the radio. "Go and help close the door. Don't waste your time on this." "Thank you, Miss Hua." The radio operator didn't think too much about it. Sister Hua said that if she notified the commander, she would definitely notify him. After all, this was a matter of life and death. Who would joke about such a thing? Huami was not joking. She just felt that Gong Yi was very busy. Even if she notified him and he rushed over from Xiangqing, he might not be able to solve the current dilemma. Without superpowers, the forces of nature are impossible to resist. After sending the radio operator away, Huami continued to collect the mud. The garrison in front was pushing hard against the door, and a steady stream of mud gushed into the material warehouse. But when the mud rolled to Huami's feet, it stopped completely. No matter how much was squeezed in, she put it back into the garbage station. Not a single piece of mud rolled into the supply warehouse. Chao Feng in front of him was still shouting in worry. "This won't work. If we continue like this, the storage will be filled up sooner or later, and we will all be buried in this storage. But what can we do if it doesn't work? As long as the door is not closed tightly, it is only a matter of time before the storage room is filled with mud." Huami, who was standing behind everyone, couldn't help but smile like a mother. Unlock the 5th level of the garbage recycling station and get the sweeping robot X4 when a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X9 rows of subtitles appeared, and Huami opened the control panel and saw that the energy of the level 10 factory was full again. How did it rush so fast? She didn't collect much mud at all. Huami now despised the energy bar of the level 10 factory, which was too short and not thick. She released 4 sweeping robots and let them run around in the warehouse, cleaning randomly and eating mud. Recover 1 G of mud. Convert energy 0.0 recycle leaves X1. Convert energy 0.0 recycle small stone X1. Convert energy 0.0 recycle bark X1. Convert energy 0.0 subtitles like this keep appearing all over the page. Huami has become accustomed to the constant stream of garbage subtitles. Then, she decided to upgrade the level 10 factory. Level 11 factory. Water bottles, all specifications. Mineral water, all specifications. Waterproof tarpaulins, all specifications. Self-priming filter type anti-particle respirators, all specifications. Orange juice, all specifications. Ethanol, painkillers, sterile gauze limited production. Hemostatic gel X 50,000. goggles x 40,000, condoms x 30,000, semi-finished pickled fish x 20,000, chocolate cake x 10,000, resin gloves x 5,000 when a lucky draw x 1 remaining lucky draws x 10 huh? Hwami looked carefully at the limited production content on the level 11 factory panel. After reaching level 10, each time the factory is upgraded, it can produce 2 more materials in unlimited quantities, or it can produce 2 more materials in limited quantities. She looked at the garrison in front again. A ball of mud squeezed into the crack of the door, burying Chow Feng, Tang Yu, and others in the mud. The mud even overturned and knocked the garrison in the rear back. Hwami helped up the garrison at the front. She lowered her head and saw that his hands were covered in mud and there were many cuts on them. It seemed that he was accidentally scratched by the branches in the mud when he was using his hands to block the mud. Here, disinfect it first. Hwami took out a bottle of ethanol, a roll of sterile gauze, a handful of painkillers, a tube of hemostatic gel, and a pair of resin gloves. She stuffed all these things into the garrison's hands. Sister Hua. The garrison had a serious look on his face. I don't need any of these things. I still have to save people. He stood at the back of all the garrisons, and there were people buried in the mud in front of him, and he had to drag them out. So he didn't have time to wash his hands and bandage the wound. Hwami didn't listen to him. After she stuffed the medical supplies, she turned around, put on resin gloves on both hands, and pulled a garrison out of the mud in front of her. Because it was too chaotic, no one could see clearly, and she pulled people out of the mud very easily. As people move, the mud recedes. The two-way retreat allowed Hwami to rescue people quickly. She handed the same medical supplies to the garrison on the ground. Here, clean the wound to prevent infection. Then Hwami went to save someone. In 1 second, one person is pulled out, and after that a pile of medical supplies is stuffed in. Unlock the 6th level of the garbage recycling station and get the sweeping robot X5 when a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X11 in this case. It is very easy to upgrade the recycling station, and Hwami continues to release 5 robots. As she dragged people out of the mud, the robots swept past her feet. I have to say, these robots are really powerful. Although they only eat a little garbage each time, they are garbage-eating fighters. As long as they sweep over a place, such as a person, the mud will be reduced by a layer. 1 sweeping robot sweeps 1 floor, and 9 sweeping robots together are enough to sweep a garrison out of the mud. In total, dozens of garrisons were dragged out of the mud. But after these garrisons were dragged out, they still rushed forward and tried to close the door. Hwami followed behind these garrisons, collecting mud as she walked. In the chaos, a lot of mud poured into the door cracks, but it was only limited to the entrance of the supply warehouse. The garrisons came together to help, dragging out the garrison in front that was buried in the mud, and then continued to rush forward to help hold up the door. Finally, Hwami pulled Chow Feng and Tang Yu out from the rolling mud. The 2 men were originally leaning against the crack of the iron gate. When the mudslide came rushing in, they were the first to be buried. As the mudslide continued to pour in, the 2 men were washed behind the garrison team. Fortunately, all the garrisons were in good health and did not fall into coma or die due to being buried for a short period of time. This may also be due to Hwami's respirator, which allows the garrison to breathe freely even when buried in the mud. Chow Feng stood up, not noticing the decreasing mud around him. He pushed Hwami to Tang Yu, who was climbing up behind him. Sister Hua, move back. Even if the final outcome is death, he will only let Hwami die behind him. Hwami was pushed to Tang Yu's side, and then pushed behind him. Hwami, who had originally advanced 2 places, was back to the end of the team. Hwami didn't bother with the 2 of them. She stuffed a pair of rubber gloves into the hands of Chow Feng and Tang Yu respectively, then bent down again and pulled Feng Yuqi and Qi Chuan out of the mud. It must be magnificent. With such a huge mudslide pressing into the crack of the door, how could the scene not be magnificent? But it was magnificent. The mudslides kept pushing the people in the front back, but no one died. Everyone gradually felt like surfing, moving forward and backward continuously, and then moving backward again. Everyone who was pulled out of the mud by Huami would be stuffed with a pair of rubber gloves. This pair of gloves is really useful. At least when worn on the hands, they not only fit the size of the palm perfectly, but are also very tough and will not cause the palm to be scratched by any hard objects. In the end, everyone was a little tired from the mudslide. Huami grabbed the mentally exhausted Chi Chuan and stuffed 2 oranges into his mouth. She pointed to the chocolate cake on the shelf behind her and said, "I just found this. Eat some before you go block the door." A chocolate cake is 12 inches. Ikegawa didn't care about anything else. He rushed over, grabbed a handful of cake, and stuffed it into his mouth desperately. Several other garrisons also discovered the chocolate cake. They all came over and took a piece and divided it up completely. "Don't worry, there's more." Huami pointed to another shelf. An entire row of shelves was filled with 12-inch chocolate cakes. There aren't many of them, maybe hundreds of them. The sweet, fresh, and soft cake with a slightly bitter taste of chocolate filled every garrison's stomach very well. Then another procedure of surfing was added. Everyone was pushed to the back of the team by the mudslide, so they went to eat cake, and after 2 bites, they went to block the door, and then they were pushed back again. They continued to eat. This cycle repeated over and over again. Unlock the 7th level of the garbage recycling station and get the sweeping robot X6 when a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X12. The garbage station was upgraded quickly, and Huami released another 6 robots. 15 sweeping robots, running around like little reptiles. After a while, Huami's level 11 factory energy bar was almost full again. Tip: the garbage station cannot be upgraded due to incomplete supporting facilities. When Huami saw this message, she was numb. What slowed down her upgrade was the safety engineering construction. Because the construction speed is too slow, the black soil has only been upgraded to level 6 so far. But the recycling station has been upgraded to level 7, the factory has been upgraded to level 11, and the warehouse has been upgraded the fastest, reaching level 13. From this perspective, the supporting facilities are indeed incomplete, and the grade of the black soil is too low. Huami sighed because she was very worried that if the energy bar of the level 11 factory was full and the recycling station could not be upgraded, she would not be able to recycle garbage anymore. But the situation here made her feel a little weird. Tip: level 11 factory has excessive energy. The remaining energy can be taken out and used to recharge 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 54%, 99% soon. That removable and usable energy was fully charged. Huami was recovering the mudslide while looking at the level 13 storage on her control panel. In her level 13 storage, there lies a ball of energy. This should be what can be extracted and used energy. Tip: level 11 factory energy is overcharged. The remaining energy can be taken out and recharged to 1%, 99%. The subtitle prompts continued to sound, and the second energy light ball was also filled. The energy in this energy ball is very small and will be filled up quickly. After a while, Huami's level 13 storage had 20 energy light balls stored in it. She took one out and held it in her palm to look at it, but there was actually nothing in her hand, only a ball of white light. "Sister Hua!" Chao Feng rushed over and shouted anxiously, "Back off, Sister Hua." When the mudslide came, Chao Feng was afraid that Huami would be buried as well. He saw Huami raise her hand, her white palm turned upwards, as if holding something. Chao Feng immediately placed his hand on Huami's palm and pulled her to prepare. Back he shook madly a few times as if he had been electrocuted. Back Chao Feng's easy roll eyes. Chao Feng, who was already very tired, suddenly felt full of strength. He pulled Huami back urgently, without having time to think. He turned around and rushed up to the mud pile with great vigor. Looking at Chao Feng, who was full of energy, as if he had taken stimulants, rolling up and down in the mud, Huami suddenly understood. It turns out that the properties of this energy ball are just like the crystal core from the previous life. Crystal cores are crystals dug out from the bodies of zombies and mutated animals and plants, which contain rich energy. Psychics need to rely on crystal cores to replenish their psychic energy.
But not now.
The crystal core will only appear when the animals and plants undergo major mutations. Because the energy in the crystal core is violent, ordinary people have no way to absorb and use it. In the hands of ordinary people, the crystal core is just an ordinary crystal. Therefore, later survivors will also use crystal cores as currency. Finally, crystal cores gradually became the common currency among the survivors. Hwami took out another ball of energy light from her level 13 storage. In just a short while, her level 13 storage had been recharged with thousands of energy balls. And this kind of energy light ball seems to be able to be used by ordinary people. Hwami thought about it because the physique of ordinary people is different from that of people with special abilities. They cannot withstand more powerful energy, so Hwami's energy light ball is just right now. Holding a ball of light in her hand, Hwami aimed at Tengyu in front of her. Tengyu was exhausted. The plastic shell on his face had almost fallen off, but because he was covered in mud, you couldn't see his original skin color at all. At this moment, he had just been washed back by the mud waves in front of him. He struggled to get up from the ground, his legs trembling. He staggered for a moment and tried to rush forward again. "I'm so tired. Really so tired." The mud blocked the road for nearly an hour, and all the garrisons were so tired that they were about to collapse. The door had not been closed yet, but because everyone was desperately holding it up, the heavy iron door was not torn open much by the mudslide outside. "We can't give up. If we give up at this moment, not only will everyone die, but all the supplies behind them will also be lost." Tengyu gritted his teeth, fell to the ground, and stood up again. Hwami patted him from behind. Tengyu in front of him thumped violently twice, as if he had been electrocuted. His spirit suddenly shook and he felt more energized than ever before, even though he was covered in mud. "Sister Hwa." Tengyu turned around and saw Hwami standing behind him, smiling at him. Hwami asked expectantly, "Are you okay? Are you feeling unwell?" Tengyu shook his head quickly, with dirt flying everywhere. Not only did he not feel uncomfortable anywhere, he even felt that he could do the job of 10 people. Is this the power of a last gasp? Tengyu felt like his life was burning. He pushed Hwami back anxiously. "Sister Hwa, please step back and find a place to hide first. If the boss comes, he will dig you out. There is still a chance. I don't know how much mud has been poured into this supply warehouse, but if Sister Hwa finds a sealed place to hide now, the boss will definitely come back eventually. Even if all their garrisons were killed, the boss would dig out their bodies and bury them properly." Hwami nodded and didn't say more to Tengyu. After Tengyu went to the door with peace of mind, she took out the ball of light again. Seeing that the garrison looked tired and staggered when walking, she went up to pat him. The opponent's fatigue was swept away, and he became as energetic as if he had taken drugs. Soon, Hwami shot out hundreds of energy light balls. Several hundred garrisons, together with Chi Chuan and his friends, and Uncle Eight's clearance team, were all full of energy and rushed forward with full strength. Stamping. Seeing that everyone was full of energy, Hwami leaned against the shelf in the corner with satisfaction and took a break. She was not afraid of the mud pouring into the deep of the material warehouse. When it was almost reaching her, she would just put the mud back into the garbage station. "Gong-yi, how are you doing over there? Are you okay?" The cell phone rang. It was Gong-yi, who was far away in Xiangqing. He was worried about Hwami's situation. She took out her cell phone and typed slowly, "Hwami, everything went well. Gong-yi, always pay attention to the surrounding mountain environment. If anything seems wrong, leave immediately. Hwami, don't worry, I cherish my life very much." She has to take care of 2 little kids in her life, so of course she has to live a good life. How could she joke with her own body? Gong-yi felt relieved and stopped replying to Hwami's message. Hwami stood up straight and collected some mud again. After getting energy light ball X100000 again, she was bored for a moment and sent a message to Gong-yi to ask, "Hwami, how is Xiangqing?" Gong-yi, very good. At this time, Gong-yi was sitting in the office of the management building, surrounded by curses. The people who scolded him were from the management level. They had been scolding him non-stop since he came to the management building. He sat in front of a floor-to-ceiling window, one foot resting on the knee of the other leg, holding a mobile phone in his hand, staring at the chat box between him and Huami Guanglin led several administrators and rushed over, pointing at Gong Yi's nose and calling him shameless. You are so shameless. Among all the garrisons in the city, no one has such evil ambitions as you. Gong Yi, you openly rebelled. You will become a sinner for all eternity. Amidst the curses, Gong Yi stood up, put his cell phone in his pocket, clenched his fist, and swung his punch, hitting Yu Guanglin directly on the nose, knocking Yu Guanglin to the ground. I'll tell you what a wolf's ambition is. Gong Yi clenched his fists, his knuckles cracking, and walked forward with a look of hostility on his face. Amid the administrator's exclamation, Gong Yi kicked Yu Guanglin in the stomach and kicked him into the corner. Gong Yi said very cruelly, "No city has a garrison like mine because some of them died, some were injured, and the few who were left without wolfish ambitions could not achieve anything. If you don't hand over the account and password of Xiangqing's reserve funds today, you will never be able to walk out of this building alive." Although the economic systems of various cities were collapsing, Xiangqing did not. He couldn't explain why this was happening. If Gong Yi could figure it out, maybe he could become an economist instead of beating people up with his fists here. Since Xiangqing's economy has not collapsed, Xiangqing's urban reserve funds are still of great use. At least she could buy lots of oranges from Huami. At the same time, in the dimly lit material warehouse in City B, Huami looked at the long string of RMB numbers on the cash register system on her control panel. Because people didn't treat money as money and rushed to buy her supplies, she made a lot of money during this period. Upgrading a factory to a higher level only cost a few 100,000 yuan, which was a drop in the bucket for her. However, supporting facilities prevented her factory from taking off. Huami sighed, not knowing what else she could do with so much money, except upgrading the factory. Can this money be taken out from the cash register system? As soon as this thought came to mind, a withdrawal panel appeared. Please enter the withdrawal amount yuan. Huami withdrew 10,000 yuan. After thinking about it, she sent a red envelope of 888.88 to Gong Yi. Huami, hi-oh, boo. I forgot to congratulate you on your promotion. Boss, please accept the small red envelope, and please take care of me in the future.
Gong Yi, sikis.
88 has been received, Gong Yi. Red envelope. Huami clicked on it and saw that Gong Yi had replied her with a big 250 yuan. Even through the screen, Huami could feel Gong Yi's contempt for her. Okay. She lowered her head and touched her belly. As long as the boss is happy, it's fine. I went out and bought myself a new cell phone today. I didn't have any plans to spend this money at first. For the past 2 years, I have always kept in mind that I am a woman who is in debt and has to work hard to raise a child. But last month you guys were so helpful and I got a bonus of 3,600 yuan. Looking at the money and my own mobile phone with a broken screen that I have used for many years, I really want to splurge. I am not a very talented author in writing. I have been in the industry for more than 10 years, and I have been mediocre. I am very grateful to you for your support. We have all had an extremely difficult time in the past 2 years. In the past 2 years, you listened to me talking about trivial matters, accepted all my negative energy unconditionally, and still stayed with me. You have worked hard too. Huami's lower abdomen is no longer as soft as before. Although it looks flat, it feels a little hard. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. Huami thought about the pile of newborn baby and monk clothes in her level 13 warehouse and suddenly seemed a little anxious. She has never been a mother, so she has no experience. Should she stock up on some milk powder or something? While thinking about it, Huami saw Chao Feng rolling over because of the mud. Chao Feng looked in a bad mood and looked tired. Huami took out her cell phone to check the time. An hour had passed since she took the photo of the energy light ball for them. So a ball of energy light can only meet an ordinary person's energy consumption for 1 hour? She took out a ball of light from the level 13 storage, and while Chao Feng was not paying attention, she slammed it directly into his body. Huami called Chao Feng again, let's go eat some cake. I think the mudslide is getting smaller and smaller, and we'll be able to hold on slowly. Chao Feng looked at the mud pouring in from the one-person wide gap in the door, and it was indeed getting less and less. It looks like the mountain outside has completely collapsed and the situation outside is becoming more stable now. As long as they wait for all the water that needs to be discharged, and they are not buried by the mud, they can find a way to dig their way out of the mountain. One after another, the garrisons began to feel tired. An hour of high-intensity work had quickly depleted their body's energy. But no one collapsed from exhaustion, and this supply warehouse, which was of unknown size, was never filled with mud. In the end, everyone was in high spirits, except Hwami, who couldn't stand the sleepiness during pregnancy and took a nap in a listless state. In her sleepy state, she didn't know who the person opposite her was. Anyway, when she saw someone passing in front of her, she started to slap the energy ball. Her hands didn't even touch the other person's body. From a distance, she could slap the energy ball in her hand into the body of the person stationed there. How could this be possible? Hwami's head nodded, and she almost fell into the mud due to sleepiness. Someone shouted loudly, "Stop, stop." She opened her eyes and saw a huge stone wrapped in the mud outside the door. The stone blocked the door gap, which was as wide as a person, leaving only some tiny gaps, which were spraying mud into the material warehouse like a water gun. Everybody breathed a sigh of relief. Ikegawa and the others sat in the mud inside the door and couldn't help but burst into laughter as if they had survived a disaster. Then everyone started laughing too, because no one among them was suffocated to death by the mud, and no one died of exhaustion. Isn't it worth a good laugh to survive a disaster? However, soon, they could no longer laugh. They realized that at this moment, a huge stone was blocking the entrance of the warehouse, and there was no way they could dig a passage out from it. But there is hope. Chichuan stood up and said loudly to his friends and his eighth uncle with a smile, "There is food and drink here. As long as we are patient, someone will come to rescue us." So now all they have to do is wait for Commander Gong to rescue them. Everyone forced a laugh again. Although that was what they said, with the current manpower and resources, it was unknown how long Commander Gong would have to wait to dig them out. He will definitely come, no one will doubt it. The original material warehouse was buried so deep in the vast mountainous area, but it was found by Commander Gong. What's more, there are still hundreds of living garrisons in this material warehouse. Chao Feng pushed through the crowd and asked the telegraph operator, "Did you receive the boss's telegram?" "What did the boss say?" The radio operator was confused. He turned around and looked for Hwami. Hwami stood behind the crowd, raised her hand and said, "Your boss said that he would let you take a rest and he would get you out in a few days." In a few days? Everyone heard Hwami's words and obviously didn't believe it. The landslides from two huge mountains buried them under two mountains. It would definitely take more than a few days to dig them out from under the two mountains. But as long as the commander replies, it means he is taking action. Now all we have to do is keep a good mood and wait for rescue. Uncle 7 quietly approached Uncle 8 and lowered his voice. "Hey, have you seen disaster movies? I heard that survivors after a disaster will have some kind of stress response." 8th uncle turned his head and looked at 7th uncle in the dim light. "Nonsense, I think you are mentally healthy. How do you know if I will become a psychopath if I am trapped for 10 days or half a month?" Uncle 7 was very unconvinced and said with his neck stiff, "You know what a psychopath is? It's when people are in a repressive and cramped environment and have nothing to do, they tend to daydream, and they tend to become perverted if they keep thinking about this and that." Before he could finish his words, Shurdyedya came over with a club and hit 7th uncle on the head. "I think you are a bit perverted now. What nonsense you are talking about affects morale." Afterwards, Shurdyedya kicked 7th uncle again and was about to continue beating him when Hwami came over. "I think what you said makes sense." Hwami stopped Shurdyedya from kicking Uncle Chi. She pulled out a snakeskin bag from behind and said seriously, "I have some toys here to kill time. If you don't mind, play with them first. When Commander Gong rescues us, we won't have to worry about psychopaths anymore." Several people came forward and peeked into the snakeskin bag. Inside were some fluorescent sticks, fluorescent dentures, and fluorescent devil horns. The workmanship was particularly crude. Such cheap toys were often seen on street stalls before. In the dim light, the pile of things emitted a strange green glow. Jiedia took out a fluorescent skull mask and looked down at it speechlessly. He felt that playing with this kind of toy in this kind of environment might make it more likely to develop psychological problems. Overhead, the lights in the supply warehouse flickered due to unstable voltage. Watching everyone start distributing fluorescent toys, Hwami looked back at the door blocked by a huge rock. She had to find something for the people inside to do. Otherwise, everyone would be staring at the door of the warehouse, and how would she clear the passage later? Then, Hwami focused her attention on the garrisons that gathered in groups of 2 or 3 between the shelves. She called Xiaofeng and Tang Yu, "Let's organize some entertainment activities. Otherwise, everyone will quickly become depressed, which is not good for their physical and mental health." Xiaofeng wiped the mud off his face. "Sister Hua, what kind of entertainment activities should we organize?" "It's all up to you." Hwami pointed to a projector, DVD, screen, and a pile of CDs at her feet. She bought them secondhand when she was shopping at a street stall, and they were now useful. No matter how abrupt it was, for the sake of the hundreds of people trapped in the supply warehouse in City B, Tang Yu and Xiaofeng seriously played the movie. Feng Yuqi led several hundred garrisons in City B, sitting cross-legged on the dry, clean, spotless ground. After playing a few powerful military songs, everyone started watching TV series. He loves her, she loves him only, but she is forced to marry him. She finally can't stand his tyranny, so she can only escape. The strong garrisons, men forged from the steel furnace, stared at the TV series on the screen. Shidiedia asked Chichuan in a low voice, "Why did she run away again?" This man gave her 1 million a month and even used an atomic bomb to set off fireworks for her. Why did she run away again? Ikuowa frowned and thought for a moment. Maybe because of love? Diedia. While everyone was immersed in this melodramatic love drama, Hwami's 15 sweeping robots had already cleaned every corner of the supply warehouse exceptionally clean. She stood alone by the iron gate of the warehouse, watching the streams of mud spurting out from the tiny cracks in the boulders. The mud fell on the ground and disappeared as soon as it got 1 meter close to Hwami. It looked like there was a transparent circle around Hwami. It was a bit difficult for Hwami to recycle both mountains into the garbage station at one time. She was worried that recycling so much would seem too abrupt. So, Hwami collected them bit by bit, observing the level 11 factory on the control panel while staring at the recycling bin. Ever since the level 11 factory was charged with excess energy, Hwami has been producing supplies again, and the green energy bar above the level 11 factory has not decreased. It is impossible to achieve 100% recharge again, and the recycling bin cannot be upgraded. But in the level 13 storage, energy light balls X10000000 have been stored. As Hwami continued to recycle the mud, the gaps between the boulders became smaller and smaller. Those gaps were blocked by small stones or dry mud. When the mud was fully squeezed out, only dry residue was left in the entire debris flow. After the stones and dry mud completely blocked the door of the warehouse, Hwami decided to take a nap first. After she was refreshed, she would collect the supplies bit by bit and get herself and the hundreds of people out.
Turn on security scan.
Completion of Security and Defense Works Defense Engineering Rating. Construction of the outer wall of Lotus Xingxing Supermarket completed rating. Advanced Protection Engineering obtained 7 square meters of black land. Please select a site for the black land. When a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X13 when Hwami, who was curled up in a dark corner, woke up, she found that her black soil had been upgraded. She hurriedly climbed out of the warm sleeping bag and looked around, but there was no one around. Everyone was at the other end of the warehouse, watching the million-dollar bride of the rich president. Hwami pondered for a while and received a reminder. A level hidden danger was found. The black soil was endangered by water accumulation. Hwami frowned and wanted to go back to Xiangqing to check on the situation of the jelly water, but she couldn't release the hundreds of people in the supply warehouse all at once. Moreover, she teleported back to the supermarket and could no longer teleport back to the supply warehouse. It would be great if the newly acquired 7 square meters of black soil could be cut, so that she could leave 1 square meter in this material warehouse as a teleportation point outside City B. As soon as this thought came to her mind, a sub-interface of black soil popped up in front of her. A piece of the 7 square meters of unsettled black soil above was directly cut off. It's like cutting a cake. Hwami was immediately excited. Without any hesitation, she left 1 square meter in the material warehouse as a teleportation point and turned directly back to the Lotus Xingxing supermarket. This time, she was determined not to run around and stayed in the Lotus Xingxing supermarket so that no one would find her, so as to avoid quarreling with Gong Yi again. As soon as she stood in the misty backyard of the supermarket, Hwami was almost buried by the jelly water. She looked at the jelly water that had risen to her waist in surprise and touched it with her hand wearing rubber gloves. The jelly water is in a more solidified state, and when you scoop it up with your hands, it becomes a paste. All the black soil was buried in jelly water. No wonder there is a crisis warning. Hwami trudged back to her supermarket with difficulty, found a vacuum cleaner in the level 13 warehouse, and started to modify it herself. She transformed the vacuum cleaner's trash can and replaced it with condoms. Hwami, of course, you can find someone who is good at hands-on work. This water pump is definitely more useful than a vacuum cleaner. Hwami, how many water pumps did you purchase in total? Yirong, it's so cheap. The rescue center is selling out. Many people from Xiangqing are leaving with their families. I exchanged an orange for a water pump, so I got 100,000 in total. They said there were 100,000 oranges, but in fact the number was more or less, because none of Yirong and the others knew how Hwami got so many oranges. She has an entire underground garage full of oranges. Chichuan's gang of speculators had been transporting oranges from City B to Xiangqing for the past 2 days. So Yirong discussed it with the owner of the water pump business and decided to sell the oranges in tons and directly asked the owner to drive away the truck full of oranges. Trucks are easy to find now. If you can't find one in Xiangqing, you can look for one in City B. Apart from these 2 cities, truck drivers can't go to other cities to transport goods, so they can only run back and forth between Xiangqing and City B. Of course, a caravan supermarket cannot accommodate a water pump worth 100,000. It was enough to pile a small part of it in there, and the rest of the large number of water pumps could only be piled up in the square around the RV supermarket of the rescue center. Fortunately, before stacking the water pumps, Yirong and Yu Mengmeng pumped out all the jelly water in the square. Hwami placed the newly acquired 6 square meters of black soil in the backyard of the supermarket. He took out a handful of seeds from the level 13 warehouse and scattered them into the 6 square meters of black soil. Because a lot of fruits were planted before, and now the stock of each kind of fruit is tens of thousands, Hwami specially planted some side vegetables this time.
Coriander, spinach, bok choy, tomatoes, cucumbers.
She also found species of Hericium arenaceus in the 13th level warehouse. Tip: the energy of the level 11 factory is overcharged. The remaining energy can be taken out and used to recharge 1%, 2%, 3%, or 100% obtain. Energy Light Group X1 obtain. Energy Light Group X1. It's not what Hwami wanted to say, but after recycling a jelly water ball, she was given such prompts crazily, which made Hwami dizzy. She counted them carefully, not knowing the origin of this jelly water. Every time she recycled a jelly water ball, her level 13 storage would increase or decrease by 100,000 energy light balls. Fortunately, these ethereal energy balls don't take up any space at all, and no matter how many there are, they can all be stored in the level 13 warehouse. However, the fluidity of this jelly water is very poor, so the drainage system of the entire city is completely useless. Fortunately, because of the poor fluidity, it will take some time for the black soil to be submerged after Hwami absorbs all the jelly water inside and outside the supermarket. With this time, Hwami can temporarily solve many problems. She teleported directly into the wall behind the RV supermarket, put the water pump inside into the level 13 storage, and then immediately released it, which was considered to be stored in the warehouse. In addition, Hwami left 10,000 boxes of condoms for Yirong and the others. There are 24 condoms in a box, enough for Yirong and her friends to use for a long time. As the rest of the water pumps placed outside the RV supermarket had not yet been put into storage, Huami sent a message to Yirong, asking them not to move them for the time being. Don't leave the filled jelly water balls lying around. Ask someone to take them behind the wall of Lianhua Xingxing supermarket. Ever since the community wall was erected, there has been no one near the huge Lotus Xingxing supermarket. Hu Jing and his relative, who was a contractor, only continued to renovate and reinforce the wall next to the community wall, leaving a large area of ruins inside. The entrance to the underground garage has also been lengthened and moved directly to the side of the road. The truck towing goods is parked directly at the wall, and a special small forklift is driven into the underground garage to transport goods into the garage. So, Huami's Lotus Xingxing supermarket and a large number of ruins were surrounded in the center of the wall. She thinks this is great. From now on, the entire area of this wall will be covered with her black soil, and it will be lush and green all year round, with a wide variety of fruits. Although Yirong didn't understand what Huami wanted to do with these jelly water balls, she had no other good way to destroy them. Yirong, okay, when will you be back? Is everything going well in City B? It must have gone smoothly. If not, Boss Gong and Xiangqing would have been restless long ago. Huami, yeah, it went smoothly. After sending the message, Huami instantly returned to the material warehouse teleportation point outside City B. In the dimly lit supply warehouse, Huami just stood still and saw Tang Yu, Chao Feng, and Feng Yuqi looking for her. I'm here. Huami stood in the corner, shook the black sleeping bag in her hand, pretended to have just woken up, and asked them, "What's wrong?" She thought something big had happened. For a moment, Huami was tense all over and prepared to face a powerful enemy. Feng Yuqi ran to Huami first, frowned, and asked, "Sister Hua, where's the second season of The Millionaire President's Bride?" Everyone is anxious to watch it. After watching the first season, that woman ran away again. There are 100 episodes in the first season. She misunderstood him for 80 episodes, she ran away for 99 episodes, and he chased her for 90 episodes. During this period, the vicious mother-in-law and the bad sister-in-law took turns to appear for 100 episodes. In the last episode, everyone thought they had finally got a happy ending, but she ran away with the ball. It was so frustrating. The whole thing could be explained in one sentence, but it had to be dragged on for 100 episodes. If there was nothing to watch, I would have wanted to quit watching the show. Feng Yuqi, a tough guy with 2 fluorescent devil horns on his head, clenched his fists in anger. The male protagonist is also an idiot. He believes anything anyone says to him. How did he become the president when he is so stupid? Didn't the senior executives of the company undermine him? Chao Feng followed closely behind. Sister Hua, where's the disc for the second season? Season 2. Huami looked around in the level 13 warehouse and shook her head. No, you can go online and look for some online resources. She reached into her pocket and grabbed a universal signal connector, then turned around and pulled out a brand new, bitten-off dragon fruit brand computer from her sleeping bag and handed it to Chao Feng. Once you have found the resources, just connect the projector. Feng Yuqi, Chao Feng, and Tang Yu quickly turned around to look for resources. Huami looked at their tall backs as they were immersed in the TV series. She walked to the iron gate of the material warehouse alone and looked at the huge stone outside the door. Taking a deep breath, Huami spent 120,000 yuan in cash to upgrade the factory. Level 12 factory. Water bottle. Mineral water. Waterproof tarpaulin. Self-priming filter type anti-particulate matter respirator. Orange juice. Ethanol. Painkillers. Sterile gauze. Hemostatic gel. Goggles limited production. Condoms X40. 000. Semi-finished pickled fish X30. 000. Chocolate cake X20. 000. Resin gloves X10. 000. Semi-finished braised lion head X5. 000. Semi-finished braised spare ribs X2. 500 when a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X14 as the factory is upgraded. More and more things can be produced on a fixed basis. The materials in the Level 12 factory interface are becoming more and more crowded, and many of the materials have been squeezed out of the text. But it's fine that there are only a few words, but why are the quantities of limited edition items getting smaller and smaller? Huami felt that this factory was too arbitrary. Braised spare ribs were delicious. She liked braised spare ribs better than braised lion's head. As a result, the braised pork ribs were only given X 2,500. After upgrading the factory, Hwami checked it again and made sure that the level 13 warehouse could be successfully upgraded this time. She rubbed her hands together, and in one breath, she put the huge stone outside the door back into the level 13 storage. Unlock storage level 14, space 14 by 1. When a lucky draw X1 remaining lucky draws X15, Hwami was reluctant to throw such a huge stone into the recycling bin. Sister Hwa, be careful. Chow Fong walked over and saw a large amount of mud rushing in from the gap of the iron door of the material warehouse. He was anxious and rushed over. But he saw Hwami leaning against the iron gate, and in a flash, she closed the gap in the iron gate. The speed was so fast that not a single bit of mud was allowed to rush into the material warehouse. Chow Fong rushed to the crack in the door that was only as wide as a finger, and curiously raised his hand to touch the half-dried mud flowing in from the tiny gap, whereas the big stone blocking the door. Maybe the big rock was carried away by the rolling mudslide. Hwami explained perfunctorily that if she didn't have to touch the garbage before putting it back into the garbage station, she would definitely close the door tightly without leaving any gap. Chow Fong, who was still trying to figure out where the huge rock outside the door had gone, reluctantly accepted Hwami's explanation. He looked worriedly at the half-dried mud that squeezed in through the crack in the door. This is pouring mud in again. Then Chow Fong lowered his head and looked at his feet. He felt something was wrong, but he couldn't tell what it was. At this time, a string of sweeping robots swept past his feet, swarming over to clean up the half-dried mud that had poured in. Chow Fong suddenly realized what was wrong. It turned out that the ground was very clean. They had spent so much time before, using their bodies to hold the door shut for several hours, and only a lot of mud had been poured into the warehouse. But look at it now. In this warehouse, except for a puddle of mud near the door, there is not a trace of mud anywhere else. There is no spot of mud. Chow Fong rubbed his head in distress. He wondered if he had been locked up in such a dark, enclosed space for too long, which led to some cognitive illusion. Sister Hwa, I might have a mental problem. He looked at Hwami and told her his discovery. Hwami was stunned for a moment. She just wanted to release these garrisons a few days later, but she had no intention of making them mentally ill. She thought about it and then explained, look, there are so many robot vacuum cleaners here. They must have swept it away. Don't worry about yourself. We will be out in a couple of days. After Hwami said this, Chow Fong felt better. It was good that there was no problem with his cognition. But can a robot vacuum cleaner clean up so much mud? Oh, forget it. The more you think about it, the more confused you become. It's more relaxing to watch Million Dollar Bride. After Chow Fong turned around and left, Hwami quickened her pace, using her fingers to touch the mud that was flowing in from the crack in the door, continuously collecting it. The sweeping robot under his feet was like a mosquito, sweeping all over the floor, making the floor of the material warehouse spotless. Finally, the semi-dried mud flowed away, and all that was left was some solid soil. The soil doesn't flow well, but now we can start digging out. Hwami took out a bunch of engineering shovels from the level 14 warehouse. These engineering shovels were bought by her online in the early days of the earthquake. There were not many of them, only a few thousand. But it was enough for these people. She called her 8th uncle's clearance team, Fong Yuchi's B City Garrison, Chow Fong, and Tang Yu, and asked them to start digging with engineering shovels. Then she wondered if she should start digging from the outside. She now had a teleport point in City B, so it was convenient to come and go. It means that it has to be transmitted back to Xiangqing first, and then driven from Xiangqing to the outside of the material warehouse. This is a bit troublesome, and it is not easy to explain to Gongyi. Finally, Hwami decided to let them dig first, just dig casually, to have a sense of participation or something, but not to let them get into any trouble because it would be bad later. She told everyone that Gongyi was digging outside, so they could dig out from inside and meet up halfway. Everyone was full of fighting spirit. They took their engineer shovels, found wheelbarrows, and transported soil into the warehouse one cart at a time. Hwami stood behind them, recycling the cart full of dirt into her own garbage station. At the same time, Seeing someone who was exhausted, Huami directly threw a ball of energy at them. This energy light ball can replenish a person's physical strength and energy, making people not feel tired, and the brain does not need sleep. But there was no way to replenish their hunger, so Huami also found Sichuan's small group and gave them rice, pots, semi-finished sauerkraut fish, chocolate cake, semi-finished braised lion's head, semi-finished braised spare ribs, as well as coriander, spinach, bok choy, tomatoes, apples, pomegranates, kiwis, etc. Let them prepare a table. Those who were tired of digging tunnels could return to the supply warehouse and sit down to have a feast. There is also the third season of The Millionaire President's Bride in front of several tables for you to watch. Such treatment actually made the garrison and clearance teams feel happy while digging tunnels. A group of big men were sweating profusely and enthusiastically discussing the content of the third season of The Millionaire President's Bride. Soon, the tunnel was dug deeper and deeper, and standing at the door of the material warehouse, the people digging the tunnel could not be seen. Huami chose the right time, wrapped herself in her sleeping bag and had a good sleep, then stretched herself, took a flashlight, and walked out of the door of the supply warehouse. She dug a new tunnel. This tunnel perfectly bypasses the tunnel dug by the garrison and clearance teams, and is only wide enough for Huami to pass through. As she walked forward, the mud in front of her was recycled into the garbage station without leaving any piles of soil, and there was no need to push a cart to transport it to the material warehouse. Therefore, Huami dug the tunnel very quickly, and she got out of the 2 mountains earlier than anyone else. Then turn back, find the right direction, dig from the outside to the inside, and prepare to meet Feng Yuqi and the others. Huami dug very quickly and estimated the workload. As long as Feng Yuqi and his team maintained this speed and dug in this direction without digging off course, they would be able to connect the tunnels in less than 2 days. To finish all this, it only took Huami a few seconds to disappear. Next, she immediately returned to the supply warehouse to eat, drink, and sleep, officially entering the pregnancy care mode. Gong Yi became increasingly busy, and he dismissed half of the people working in the entire headquarters building. Because Xiangqing's network signal was completely cut off, no one could use the internet except those who had a universal signal connector who could freely access the internet and make phone calls. I can't make a phone call either. Many people in Xiangqing were scared by the jelly water and ran to City B. But more survivors came to Xiangqing. The information obtained by these survivors who came to Xiangqing had not been updated yet, and they did not know about the jelly water in Xiangqing. Their information is still at the stage where Xiangqing can buy sufficient supplies with money. Therefore, even if the Xiangqing administrators who were dismissed by Gong Yi wanted to report the news of Gong Yi's mutiny, they couldn't do so. In the Xiangqing management building, Yu Guanglin was trapped in his office. As the top boss in Xiangqing, he has an entire floor of office space. Because he couldn't stand Gong Yi's strong oppression, he angrily handed over the account password of Xiangqing reserve funds. At this moment, he was sitting in the corner of his office with a decadent look on his face. Hearing footsteps, Yu Guanglin looked up and saw Qin Ziren standing in front of him. "Why weren't you sent away?" Yu Guanglin was a little surprised. In the whole building, those who should be trapped were trapped, and those who had a good attitude and cooperated with Gong Yi in the handover work were released only after handing over the city management work. Qin Ziren was originally the emergency area management commander who was dismissed by the Xiangqing management system, and he did not have any work to do. "Why are you still here?" Qin Ziren lowered his head and looked at the purple bruises on Yu Guanglin's face. "I'll be out soon, Commander. We have to think of a way to turn the situation around." Yu Guanglin's eyes flashed with reluctance. He looked up at Qin Ziren and said, "What else can you do now? Facing that lunatic Gong Yi, who else can do anything?" Qin Ziren took out a document that authorized him to be the first secretary of the Xiangqing management commander. "Commander, if you trust me, I can find Huami. No matter what means I use, I will make her stand on our side." All they know at the moment is that Gong Yi was very forward-looking and stockpiled large quantities of supplies before the earthquake. Even after the earthquake, he made a lot of money and entrusted Huami to buy a lot of supplies for him. Only Huami knows where Gong Yi hides these supplies. If Huami could be asked to reveal the location of the supplies, At least Xiangqing's management system would not be so passive. This batch of materials can be used for anything, and it will be enough to start my own business in the future. In other words, they might be able to use some coercive means to convert these supplies into their own. Even if we have to use some illegal means, as long as Huami tells us the whereabouts of that huge batch of materials, it will be fine. Yu Guanglin's eyes fell on the authorization letter in Qin Ziren's hand, and he asked, "How sure are you?" "I don't think that woman is easy to deal with. Besides, this is against the rules." At that time, Yu Guanglin and Huami had dealt with each other outside the RV supermarket. Now the garrison in Xiangqing is very convinced of Huami. They should be convinced, after all, Huami can purchase supplies for them. Even an old fox like Yu Guanglin could see that there was an abnormal relationship between Huami and Gong Yi. If the administrator of Xiangqing wants to take action against Huami, the garrison will not just sit there and watch. Qin Ziren lowered his eyes to hide the cruelty in them. It's already this late. The garrison used force against us first. If we can't retaliate, isn't that the end of the game? People can always find various reasons for their behavior and excuse their evil deeds. Yes, who made Gong Yi beat someone? Who made Gong Yi have such a wicked ambition? Who made Huami help the tyrant? Isn't it all Huami's fault? Yu Guanglin stopped talking and took the power of attorney from Qin Ziren. But he didn't sign it and threw the letter of authorization aside. "I don't care what you want to do. I don't ask about the process, I only ask for the result. If the result is good, I will sign this letter of authorization. If he doesn't sign, Qin Ziren's actions will have nothing to do with him." Moreover, Yu Guanglin did not express his opinion. He did not say that Qin Ziren should do it, nor did he say that Qin Ziren should not do it. Anyway, he only cares about the result and doesn't care about the process. Qin Ziren understood that if he could get Huami to help as an administrator, he would be the first secretary of the Xiangqing management commander. Otherwise, he would die at the hands of the garrison. He accepted such a deal. Yes, that's right, this was a deal between him and Yu Guanglin. Men are adventurous. Since ancient times, men have been responsible for hunting. As the saying goes, wealth and honor come in danger. If you want to reach the top overnight, you have to do something risky. At this time, Gong Yi sent the account number and password of Xiangqing's reserve funds directly to Huami. "Gong Yi, are you sure you can still purchase supplies with cash?" Huami, yes. She lay in her sleeping bag, replied a message to Gong Yi, then put her hands back into the sleeping bag and continued to sleep. In the pregnancy-nurturing mode, Huami wished she could grow together with the sleeping bag. But Gong Yi sent her another message. "Gong Yi, don't force it. If the money can't be used, just tell me directly, and we'll think of other ways." "Huami, it works for now. My supplier still accepts cash transactions." She curled up in her sleeping bag, texting Gong Yi while opening the Citibank's website and logging into the Xiangqing City account. At first glance, my God, Xiangqing's reserve funds are so huge, it's in the trillions. But there is no way for this money to directly enter Huami's cash register system. Just like the money that Gong Yi placed in the rescue team's public account, there was no way to transfer it directly to Huami's cash register system. You must buy the supplies from Huami's level 14 warehouse. "Gong Yi, are you okay over there? Nothing happened, right?" Gong Yi's message did not stop. As soon as he finished speaking, Chi Chuan ran deep into the material warehouse. Sister Hua, it's connected. We can go out now." "Huami, I plan to return to Xiangqing. The supplies here have been arranged. The entire supply warehouse, except for some necessary food and mineral water left for the hundreds of garrisons, had been replaced with Huami's oranges." She went to a supply warehouse in City B and filled a whole warehouse with oranges. "Huami, Gong Yi, let me tell you, this B City material warehouse is built perfectly. The circuit system and air purification system inside can be used as a long-term material warehouse and shelter. Huami, and I've seen it, the materials used here are all pure thick and good steel. The B City material warehouse can be preserved. She left a teleportation point in here, so of course it can't be destroyed. So, although it is possible to go out now, Huami plans to transform this place and instigates Gong Yi to set up a sentry post here. "Gong Yi, Come back first. How many condoms do you have left? He could safely hand over 10 billion to her, let alone these trillions in Xiangqing. So Huami can set the price at will, and Gong Yi never bargains with Huami. He also knew that although Huami's supplies were more expensive than before the disaster, she didn't charge exorbitant prices. She still had a fixed price. Huami, the condoms are so useful. I have to sell them at a higher price. I can't sell them by box. I have to sell them by piece, 9,999 each. As for the specific modifications, let the garrison do it themselves. After finishing this matter, Huami crawled out of her sleeping bag and went to the seat prepared by Qi Chuan and others. Because the tunnel was dug through, everyone was very excited. Some people waved their arms. The commander is amazing. We have only been digging for a few days, and the tunnel is already open. The collapse of 2 such thick mountains would have affected a large area, but they only took 2 days to dig them out. This shows how much effort Gong Yi put in. Someone else asked curiously, why is it that the tunnel is open, but there are no garrison personnel? After these words were spoken, many people at the tables fell silent. They were very confused. After the tunnel was opened, many of them went out to check, but there was not a single guard stationed outside. So, where did Commander Gong and the rest of the garrison go? Chao Feng and Tang Yu looked at each other and were about to take out their phones to ask where the commander was. Huami stood up at this time and said loudly, something happened in Xiangqing. Hurry up and widen the passage so that we can transport supplies to Xiangqing for disaster relief. After saying that, she sent the video on her phone that Yirong had sent her, which showed that the jelly water in Xiangqing had risen to her thighs, to Chao Feng, Tang Yu, and Qi Chuan. It's so weird. Feng Yuqi moved closer to Qi Chuan and also saw the video, with a serious look on his face. Huami shook her head. No one knew what kind of water this was. She only knew that by recycling this jelly water, her energy light ball would increase a lot. This indirectly showed that the energy contained in this jelly water was much greater than that of ordinary water. I also heard Huami say to Feng Yuqi, Xiangqing is like this now. I guess Ruby City will be like this in the end. All the water balls were thrown into the garbage dump in City B. Feng Yuqi shook his head at Huami's arrangement. He looked seriously at the deep end of the warehouse, where the oranges were piled high. The commander asked us to guard this warehouse. If our garrison in City B leaves, the supplies in this warehouse will be in danger if no one is guarding it. Although this material warehouse was buried by a mountain, there were still some oranges in it. Anyone with a keen eye can always follow the clues and find the supply warehouse. Huami felt that Feng Yuqi's concerns were reasonable. Although she didn't think the oranges in the warehouse were valuable, she wouldn't feel sorry if they were snatched away. But she really doesn't like others snatching her things. It's hers. No one can take it away from her. I have an idea. Huami clapped her hands and said to Feng Yuqi, you have so few people stationed in City B, so you should continue to guard the material warehouse and widen the tunnel. Send a few more people to City B to organize the police in City B and let them absorb the accumulated water. Last time, she met a policeman from City B named Yang Honglin. She had a good impression of him and thought he was a very responsible person. Feng Yuqi agreed, and everyone immediately split up into several groups. He went to City B to gather the police, while Tang Yu stayed at the supply department, leading several hundred people from City B to garrison, guarding the supplies while widening and reinforcing the tunnel. This is a huge project because the tunnel they have dug in a hurry is rugged and narrow. Especially the large part of the tunnel that the commander had people dig could only accommodate one person. Cars cannot enter or exit, and there is a risk of collapse at any time. Therefore, while widening the tunnel, it also needs to be reinforced. Ikegawa and Uncle Eight's team were responsible for carrying the oranges from the supply warehouse out of the tunnel and loading them onto trucks. This does not prevent them from bringing oranges to disaster relief. And Huami said that she would go back to Xiangqing to deal with some things first, so she found a deserted place and returned to Xiangqing instantly. She drove her car and prepared to go to the Xiangqing garbage dump first. It takes several hours for the jelly water to accumulate. It takes at least 24 hours to absorb all the jelly water on the road and wait for it to accumulate to the thigh level again. In the past 2 days, All the jelly water balls made by Yi Rong and others were piled up in the Xiangqing garbage dump. If the garbage dump is not cleaned up, it will soon be full. At this time, someone guarding outside the Lotus Xingxing supermarket saw Huami driving a nanny car out of the wall. He immediately informed the man behind him, "Tell Xiren that Huami has appeared." The man behind him got out of the car and went to inform Qin Xiren. The man who was originally sitting in the driver's seat of the car drove behind Huami. The telephone signal in Xiangqing was completely cut off, so communication was very difficult and there was no way to achieve instant communication. So Qin Xiren found some of his classmates in college to help him win back Huami. Yes, he told his classmates that this was to win back Huami. At this time, he was in a large tent outside the rescue center and was annoyed by Fong Xian's pestering. "Fong Xian, I've told you many times that I only treat you as my sister. The person I like in my heart is your sister. Huami. Life is already trivial enough, and women like Fong Xian are becoming increasingly disgraceful." There was nothing else to say. It was just because when Qin Xiren was trying to move up, Fong Xian couldn't help him at all. People should be more realistic. This kind of woman can be used as a pastime when you are bored in peaceful and stable times. But when there was no way to guarantee this kind of survival, Fong Xian only brought endless burden to Qin Xiren. Fong Xian cried and hugged Qin Xiren's arms. "Brother Xiren, you can't abandon me. If you don't want me, who are we and Dad going to rely on next?" Before he finished speaking, he heard someone outside calling Qin Xiren. "Xiren, hurry up, we found Huami." Brother Xiren. Fong Xian chased out of the big tent and stood in the rain. She saw only a white mist in front of her, and there was no trace of Qin Xiren. She stamped her feet in anxiety. Qin Xiren went to find Huami just like that, and left just like that. Why was it always Huami? As long as there was news about Huami, Qin Xiren would abandon her without hesitation. Fong Xian was very unwilling. She walked angrily to her father Fong Huai's tent, lifted the tent curtain, and saw Fong Huai counting supplies in the tent. All the survivors live near the rescue center. With the hard work of Xiangqing's urban clearance team, the ruins of the entire collapsed city are being cleared bit by bit. What was leveled, what was filled, and now the entire Xiangqing has become a huge bear depression. But many people don't know this because many people don't wear goggles in front of their eyes. It's already very good if they can roughly figure out what is a few meters ahead. In this case, the goggles sold in RV supermarkets are priced at 55,000 yuan each, and many people buy them. Of course, those who bought goggles did not include Fong Xian and Fong Huai, because Fong Huai simply didn't have that much money, and Fong Xian's income from work was not enough to satisfy her luxury consumption. In the past, Fong Xian had to give her money every month. So Fong Xian came to find Fong Huai just to discuss with him and go buy a pair of goggles to wear. Otherwise, if she wanted to go find Qin Xiren, she wouldn't know how to find him in the thick, white fog. Fong Xian saw Fong Huai stuffing oranges into his bag, and she asked hurriedly, "Dad, where are you taking these oranges?" "I saw your Uncle Ming. He invited me to play a few rounds of cards with him. TSK, I'll be back soon." Fong Huai had no money, but fortunately, nothing could stop a gambler, and Xiangqing could now use food as bargaining chips. Especially oranges. One orange is 9.9. If you can win a hand of cards, you can get a bunch of oranges. Fong Xian was anxious after hearing this. She grabbed Fong Huai's bulging backpack and, "Dad, please don't gamble. I don't have any income in this world. I heard that the rescue center has canceled the 2 snacks and even the free breakfast. Dad, the situation is getting more and more serious. We should save some food. Those who can leave Xiangqing have left, and those who cannot leave Xiangqing do not have the conditions to leave. For example, Fong Xian and Fong Huai, they have no car and no money. Moreover, after arriving in City B, I don't know whether 3 meals a day will be provided for free." So Fong Xian and Fong Huai stayed in Xiangqing by garrisoning and drawing jelly water as long as they could. When you really can't survive anymore, it won't be too late to think of other ways to survive. So, at this time, you should stock up more food to avoid starving to death on the way. This is something Fong Xian gradually figured out after Dai Feng's death. After Dai Feng, Fong Xian grew up rapidly. She began to realize the importance of materials, especially after Qin Ziren showed obvious impatience with her. In her mind, the status of material things has surpassed that of men. Feng Huai looked very impatient. He shook off Fong Xian's hand and said, "These oranges are just worth so much. If you lose, you lose. If you lose, find a way to ask your sister for it. I've already told you that your sister was raised by our family, so she should be filial to me and your mother. Why are you panicking? And her man, Gong Yi? You should also go and get to know him. Don't hang around Qin Ziren all day. You don't need to spend too much energy on that useless man." It shouldn't be Feng Huai who instigated Fong Xian to do this kind of thing, but Feng Huai's wife who should do it. But the two fled all the way from the small town to Xiangqing, and the couple got separated along the way. Finally, Feng Huai arrived in Xiangqing safely, but his wife was nowhere to be seen and he couldn't get through to her on the phone because of the poor signal. Feng Huai is a strange guy. After arriving in Xiangqing, the first thing he did was not to look for his wife or his daughter Fong Xian, but to find a Ming who lived in the same town with him. The two of them invited people from the same town and gambled until they were crazy and lost all their money. Finally, Feng Huai sighed at his bad luck and found Fong Xian. Fong Xian was thrown aside by her father and then turned around and tried her best to stop Feng Huai from taking the oranges to gamble. Feng Huai couldn't help it and started punching and kicking Fong Xian. At this time, Huami had already arrived at the Xiangqing garbage dump. She had already noticed the car following her, but Huami did not stop it. Because in Xiangqing, all the open roads are garrisoned. Even if the other party wants to harm her, Huami has no way to kill them directly. It would be better to lure them out of Xiangqing and find a place where they can't be seen. After getting off the car, Huami looked at the garbage dump in front of her. She looked in surprise at the large area in front of her that was piled up like a mountain of jelly water balls. It was really spectacular. The jelly water balls piled up all the way up, making the garbage around them look insignificant. The spheres that appeared in front of Huami were huge and transparent, and in the dense rain, they looked like bubbles piled up together. There is a kind of weird beauty. She took 2 steps forward, and the car that had been following her stopped. "Huami." The person following her spoke up and asked curiously, "What are you doing in a place like this?" It was obvious that the man following Huami knew Huami. She said nothing and turned to look at the man, who looked very strange. Huami had already forgotten all the unimportant people in her memory. Even Gong Yi, a man she had spent one night with, was forgotten by Huami, let alone the cats and dogs who were not very important in her previous life. The man took 2 steps forward and smiled at Huami. "Ziren asked me to follow you. He said you had a fight with him and he wanted to win you back, so he asked us to be friends and help him." "Oh, a nice guy with excessive kindness." Huami turned around, wearing a raincoat, and was about to speak when several cars came behind the man and a group of men got out of the cars. There must be more than 10 to 20 of them in total. She raised her eyebrows. "It seems like there's more to it than just getting back together with my ex-girlfriend today." "That's great." There are no garrisons at the garbage dump because the area of the garbage dump is too large. All the garbage and water of the entire Xiangqing are here. You can see how big the range is. "Huami, what's the problem between you and Ziran? You two are such a perfect match. Why did you have to make such a fuss?" Huami finally remembered who was speaking. He is a man named In Xiaoyu. Looking at In Xiaoyu standing at the front of the group of about 20 people, Huami couldn't help but smile. This In Xiaoyu was Qin Ziren's roommate in college. No one knows where Qin Ziren died in his previous life. But In Xiaoyu is still alive. He even lived to meet Huami and told her that the person Qin Ziren had cheated with was Fong Xian. If In Xiaoyu hadn't said these words, Huami would probably never know until her death that the sister she had risked her life to protect in the apocalypse had betrayed her in this way. Is she sad? When she first heard about this, did Huami feel heartbroken? The answer is of course no. Her feelings for Qin Ziren had gradually dissipated after she found the little duck. The same is true for 2 lifetimes. Huami just felt angry and unwilling. Fong Xian played tricks on her, but she still protected Fong Xian for so long in the apocalypse like a loyal guard. Of course I will be angry and unwilling. Looking at Xiaoyu, Huami said, "What's going on?" "You mean, I was cheated on by a scumbag, but I can't leave him? What do you want to do by bringing so many people here?" And Xiaoyu felt a little embarrassed. He hadn't expected Qin Ziren to call so many people. He thought Qin Ziren had only called him Huami Ziren, and we didn't mean that. It's just that you know he really likes you. The world is so difficult nowadays. It's rare for you to meet a man who really likes you. He wants to win you back, so he called us to help. Huami sneered, "But I don't want to look back." "Can you force love into anything? What if you don't look back?" And Xiuyu frowned, as if he also felt that this matter was very difficult. If he had known this earlier, he would have ignored it. As Qin Ziren's roommate, and Xiuyu knew that Qin Ziren had cheated on Fong Xian, Huami's sister. Qin Ziren was not in the right in this matter, so it was only natural for the girl to break up with him. As a result, Qin Ziren called over a dozen or 20 people to block Huami, a girl, in the garbage dump. Moreover, Xiuyu was not very familiar with these dozen or 20 men. Some of them have tattoos on their bodies, which makes them look tough. Just as he was about to speak, he heard a tattooed man rudely say, "You are Huami, right? My brother told me that he likes you and wants to be with you, so stop being so hypocritical. At this time, there is a man who wants you, and you are still not satisfied?" Several men nearby also advised in a gruff voice, "That's right. Just do what I tell you to do. Don't disobey me. You've been dating our brother Qin for such a long time. Do you still want to find someone else? I think if a woman doesn't obey, she should be beaten up, and then she will obey." Huami looked at these people coldly, then looked at the awkward and uncomfortable expression on Xiuyu's face. "I remember Qin Ziren and I didn't get a marriage certificate, right? What arrow is this? Can such a thing be forced?" Because of her personality, she didn't like getting close to people, especially men. So Qin Ziren pursued her for 3 years, and she agreed. She was with Qin Ziren for a year, but whenever he got close to her, she backed away. She was not shy at all. She was the tough one who had adult love with him. Gong Yi was just the one who was forced on her. So now when she was told that she had known Qin Ziren for a few years and had been in love with him for a year, she could not look for another man and had to be tied to Qin Ziren. Huami found it ridiculous. And Xiuyu didn't know what to say. The nature of today's situation had completely changed. He saw several burly men with their fists raised, ready to step forward to scare Huami, so Xiuyu immediately said, "Huami, look at the current situation. Don't be stubborn. If you have anything to say, wait until Ziren comes." He said this with a bit of annoyance, because he felt that Qin Ziren's behavior was a bit too much. 20 or so men surrounded a woman like Huami and threatened her. "It's too lowbrow." Huami raised her eyebrows, crossed her arms, and looked at Xiuyu. This Xiuyu didn't seem to be a bad person. She said, "Okay, you're right, I'll wait for Qin Ziren to come." The 10 or 20 men were still talking at the same time. "Just be obedient, don't be stubborn, or we will really beat you up if you continue to be stubborn." "That's right, Ziren is doing this for your own good. I heard that you found a garrison as your man. That's what's wrong with you. How can you be so fickle?" And Xiaoyu was a little anxious. He looked at so many men surrounding Huami, a lonely woman, and ordering her around. The condemnations became more and more severe. Huami lowered her eyes, folded her arms, and said nothing. And Xiaoyu began to feel that these men were going too far. They are bullying a woman. At this time, the last car drove over and Qin Ziren finally arrived. Huami, who was surrounded by a group of men, finally raised her eyes, with a bright light reflected in her eyes. Qin Ziren got out of the car. Among the man with tattoos turned around and raised his chin towards Qin Ziren. "This woman is pretty, no wonder you can't stop thinking about her. TSK, if she wasn't your woman, I would have wanted to play with her too." "Thank you." Qin Ziren patted the tattooed man on the shoulder, looking like a good brother. "I'll treat you to dinner later." Then, he walked up to Huami, with a satisfied look in his eyes. "Ami, are you scared?" Huami moved her hands and asked Qin Ziren, "Where did you find all these monsters?" Qin Ziren smiled politely and gestured to the man with the tattooed arms. "My childhood neighbors, you know how life is, you can't get by without some friends. Ami, don't worry, they won't do anything to you without my permission." "Qin Ziren, who was your neighbor when you were a kid?" Huami continued to ask, tapping her arm with her fingertips. When Qin Ziren walked towards her, she did not move. "They've been to jail, they've killed people, I gave them some benefits, now they listen to me." Qin Ziren stepped forward and stood in front of Huami, with a look of pride in his eyes. "Look, Ami, if you had been so obedient earlier, we wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. I've said that I'm the best and you're the best, so we should be together for the rest of our lives." Huami slowly pulled out a 1-foot-long machete from her sleeve. "Ha ha ha ha, this woman dragged out a knife. You are so delicate. Why would you want to learn how to play with a knife? Exactly who are you trying to scare? Are you thinking we're just decorations?" The dozen or so men that Qin Ziren had called over all laughed at Huami. The man with tattoos walked over impatiently and said to Qin Ziren, "You are a very disobedient woman. Let us give you to the brothers first, and let her suffer a little. I will make sure she will obey you." Qin Ziren hesitated for a moment, then looked at Huami and nodded slightly. Seeing this, and Yu on the side came over anxiously and said angrily, "Qin Ziren, are you crazy? How can you do this to a woman?" He was wrong, he was really wrong. He thought he was here just to help Qin Ziren and Huami get back together, but he didn't expect that he would see the evil of human nature. Qin Ziren pushed Yu away and looked expressionlessly at Huami, who was holding a knife in the rain. "You saw it, Ami. I just want you to come back to me, be obedient, and have an easier life. Otherwise, you know what you will face next. I don't want to do this to you, but please don't force me to become a devil." Huami stood in the rain, without moving. Seeing Huami didn't say anything, one of the men under the flower-armed man stepped forward and stretched out his hand towards Huami, ready to slap her. "You really don't see the coffin." Before he could finish his words, Huami slashed at him with a machete, directly cutting through the man's shoddy raincoat, and hot blood spurted out of his chest. Scattered the sky. Everyone was silent. Huami had an expressionless face, as she moved her eyes inch by inch to look at Qin Ziren. The man who was hit in the chest by her knife thrashed on the ground for a few times, and it was unknown whether he was dead or not. The sky darkened, and the white mist turned black. Qin Ziren's face turned serious. Before he could say anything, the man with tattoos cursed, "You witch, I'm going to kill you." He took out a string of chains and rushed towards Huami. A large group of men also rushed up. They didn't think there was anything wrong with so many men beating one woman, because they were just vagrants on the streets. When the disaster struck, the police in Xiangqing disappeared. Behind the garrison's sight, the evil in their hearts grew endlessly. Huami walked forward and started swinging her knife. That was how she fought. Every time she swung her knife, she would chop at the brain or neck. If the other party could dodge it, he might not be killed by her sword. But if the opponent can't dodge, she will chop off his head directly. The two heads rolled in the rain and rushed over to the man with tattoos and others. They were horrified and stopped, looking at the two headless corpses standing in front of Huami one by one. "Excuse me, once I enter combat mode, this is how I normally fight." Huami, who looked weak, smiled at everyone sheepishly, then looked at Qin Ziren and asked deliberately, "Qin Ziren, are you scared?" There was a strong hint of sarcasm in his tone. The man with tattooed arms gently waved at the other men. They had not given up yet and planned to attack Huami from behind. But Huami is a woman who has lived in the apocalypse for her entire life, so how could she be easily ambushed? Compared to the mutant animals that approach silently, the noise made by humans when they launch a sneak attack is really too loud. It was as if she had eyes on her back. She turned around and cut off the hands of the two men behind her. The muscle memory was completely awakened. Before Huami could think clearly, the hand holding the knife rose automatically. It is necessary to chop off the heads. Otherwise, the zombies and mutant animals will not die. Go, go. Run, run. The man with tattoos finally realized that the woman he met was not an ordinary one. With this clean and neat method of killing by beheading, Huami is either a professional killer or an extremely perverted person. How could such a small character like them handle this? How could Qin Ziren get involved with such a woman? The group of men called by Qin Ziren dispersed, and Huami did not chase them. She waved her hand, and a huge rock fell from the sky. The more it is crushed, the better. Amidst a loud bang, Huami strode towards Qin Ziren, holding a bloody fruit knife. "Ah, don't come over here. Don't come over here." Qin Ziren was terrified. To be honest, when Gong Yi was mutinying, the scene was not as cruel and bloody as today. He had no time to care about whether the boulder fell from the sky or not. He was just frightened by Huami's cruel methods and kept retreating. Finally, he remembered that he had brought a gun with him today in order to have the courage to do his evil deeds. So Qin Ziren retreated while hurriedly taking out the gun from his pocket and pointed it directly at Huami. He shouted tremblingly, "You, don't come over here. I just want to teach you a lesson. I don't want to kill you. It was you. You were the first to disobey. You sold the ancestral home for so much money. You had so many supplies, but you never told me. You helped Gong Yi fight for power, but what about me? I am your boyfriend. I just want to find someone to scare you. If they bully you, I will stop them in the end. You don't listen to the management system, so what's wrong with teaching you a lesson? Just tell me where the garrison supplies are hidden, and I won't make things difficult for you. Just let me go." He stepped back step by step, his expression broken. Huami, with tiny bloodstains on her goggles, walked forward step by step and took the time to think of a question. Qin Ziren's hand holding the gun was unsteady. "Is this accurate?" You see, rinsed her goggles clean again, and she walked towards Qin Ziren step by step. The oppressive aura gave people enough psychological pressure. Qin Ziren soon suffered a mental breakdown. The moment he pulled the trigger at Huami, Huami chopped off Qin Ziren's palm with a knife. The heavy pistol fell into the mud. With a broken palm, she felt a little miserable because the edge of the cheap fruit knife was curled. If you don't have the right weapons, how are you going to kill zombies in the future? Huami simply threw away the curled fruit knife in her hand and continued to walk towards Qin Ziren, who kept shouting and retreating. Did she think that because the edge of the fruit knife was curled, she didn't have a knife anymore?
How naive.
She pulled out a fruit knife from her sleeve. And Xiaoyu shouted, "Huami, stop it. Don't kill anyone. It's never too late to turn back, Huami." In the rain, Huami turned back expressionlessly and glanced at Xiaoyu, who was pointing a gun at her. In front of her, Qin Ziren, the man with the broken hand, was rolling in the mud. Seeing Xiaoyu pointing a gun at Huami, Qin Ziren immediately screamed, "Shoot! Shoot! Hurry up and shoot this witch!" His voice was broken. He was filled with anger, fear, and pain. He regretted it so much now. Why didn't he kill Huami directly when he took out his gun? Now Huami has the upper hand. And Xiaoyu didn't dare to kill anyone. What he saw tonight was Huami chopping off several people's heads, which scared him to death. Seeing Huami turning her head and looking at him quietly, it seemed as if Huami would raise her knife and chop him in the next moment. And Xiaoyu is more timid than Qin Ziren. His whole body was shaking, and he said sadly, "Why has the world become like this? You are obviously a couple. Why do you have to fight to the death?" He dropped the gun in his hand and cried loudly, "Why? Why did it become like this?
Why?
Who can tell him what is wrong with this world? After the earthquake, there is strange jelly water, and people who leave the city will encounter mudslides. Even the relationships between people have lost the most basic civilized morals. Where is the goodness of human nature? Where has it gone? Is there only evil left?" Huami glanced at the gun that Xiaoyu dropped on the ground and said calmly, "Kindness without ability will kill you." As soon as he finished speaking, before Xiaoyu could react, Qin Ziren, who had a broken hand on the ground, suddenly jumped up and ran away. Huami chased after him with a knife in hand, and Xiaoyu was still standing there crying loudly. He felt that what he saw tonight had made his heart die. What hope is there in life? The whole world has fallen into darkness. What hope is there? His spirit has completely collapsed. Maybe Huami is right. How can a person like him survive in such a dark heart? How can he survive? Qin Ziren was stumbling in front, while Huami was following behind calmly. Qin Ziren panicked and ran headfirst into the jelly water ball in front of him. There was no way forward. He turned around with a look of horror, looking at Huami, who was like a madman, and begged, Ami, please don't kill me. I did it all because I love you. Everything I did today was only because I love you too much, Ami. To love me means to find a bunch of terrible men to humiliate me? Huami took 2 steps forward and saw Qin Ziren's hand quietly groping for a stone. He continued to plead calmly, no, Ami, believe me, I won't let them touch a hair on your head. They will listen to me. Even if they take off your clothes, they won't do anything to you. I just brought them here to scare you. Huami continued to walk forward. Hearing this, she couldn't help but sneer. Do you think that evil without the restraint of violence can be stopped at any time? A large group of men surrounded her, a woman, with no guards around her and no means to restrain them. Is evil so easy to stop? What's more, Qin Ziren, I don't believe a word you say. Huami stood in front of Qin Ziren. He suddenly raised his intact hand and held a stone to hit Huami's temple. He shouted fiercely, You are the culprit for all this. I am your boyfriend. Again, ex-boyfriend. Before Huami went to find Zigong Yi, she had already officially broken up with Qin Ziren. Qin Ziren always thought she was joking. After such a long time of rebirth, Huami would reiterate every time that Qin Ziren was her ex-boyfriend. It was just that Qin Ziren was unwilling to be dumped. He was unwilling to be killed by the witch Huami. He still wanted to be a superior person and to be successful. In the next moment, he found that the scenery in front of him was spinning. Finally, Huami's feet in leather boots appeared in his eyes. The scene in front of me gradually turned into a crack and finally disappeared into darkness. Huami put away the knife in her hand and turned around without even glancing at the headless Qin Ziren behind her. She walked to the side to collect the jelly water balls, and as she was collecting them, she unknowingly came to Xiaoyu's place. Xiaoyu was kneeling in the rain, surrounded by several headless corpses and holding a gun in his hand. Is this a mental breakdown? Huami raised her eyebrows and continued to collect the garbage without making a sound. After a while, she saw Xiaoyu pick up the gun in his hand and pointed it at his own temple. She stopped collecting supplies and asked, Do you have any sisters at home? Xiaoyu, who was kneeling in the rain, was shocked. He turned around and looked at Huami, who was standing in front of the transparent water ball. On a rainy night, the crazy woman and the headless corpse made Xiaoyu feel a sense of fear in his heart. He looked at Huami in horror, and when Huami took a step forward, he took a step back in panic. So Huami didn't go forward and asked again, You don't have any sisters at home? Xiaoyu nodded, then shook his head. My mother just gave birth to a sister for me. He was only in his 20s, but his mother, despite her advanced age, gave birth to a younger sister for him, and the whole family adored her.
A sister? Huami thought about it.
When she met Xiaoyu in her previous life, he was alone, without parents or sister. I think he died in the turbulent times of the end of the world. So Huami said again, I know of an evil that eats children. What nonsense are you talking about? Xiaoyu yelled at Huami. No matter how dark people's hearts are, how could they be so dark? Cannibalism was a thing in ancient times. It is impossible to happen now. People nowadays have improved so much in terms of quality and cognition. How could they do such a thing? Is your mother young? Huami ignored Xiaoyu's roar and continued, I also know a kind of evil. As long as it is a woman, from an old man half buried in the ground to a baby in swaddling clothes, as long as it is a woman, get lost.
Get lost.
Stop talking. Stop talking. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Xiaoyu was so angry that he couldn't find anything to hit anyone with, so he took the gun in his hand and shot at Huami. Just throw the gun away. Huami raised her foot and kicked the gun that was thrown at her, and instantly put it into the level 14 storage. In the dark rainy night, Xiaoyu couldn't see clearly where his gun was thrown. He just continued to go crazy, holding his head in his hands, but still hurriedly got up and ran back. Because he had seen only the tip of the iceberg of this evil, he was afraid. These days are making people collapse and despair, but his sister is still young and his father is in poor health. If human nature is really as evil as Hwami said, and Sioyu is afraid that his mother cannot handle it alone. During the whole process, he was so mentally stimulated that he didn't notice at all that a huge stone fell from the sky in the dark night. Watching and Xiaoyu stumbling away, even forgetting to drive the car, Hwami sneered, turned around, and put all the garbage on the ground back into the garbage station, including the cars those people drove over. And her boulder, which is her weapon and cannot be lost. A whole night passed, and Hwami still hadn't collected all the jelly water balls that covered the garbage dump. In the distance of the garbage dump, a large garbage truck was driving towards us, with its cargo box full of jelly water balls. The driver didn't notice at all what the difference was between today's garbage dump and yesterday's garbage dump. He just unloaded a truck full of jelly water balls and drove away from the garbage dump. Hwami collected garbage until dawn. Just as she was about to go back to sleep to take care of her baby, Gongi called her and asked, "Why aren't you in the group going back to Xiangqing?" Hwami looked at the sky. It was so early. Those people from City B who were returning to Xiangqing came back so early? But when she looked at the time on her phone, she was shocked to find that it was already noon. Hwami looked at the dawning sky again and frowned slightly. Gong, why is it so late today? I don't know. Let's talk about it when we get back. At this time, Gong Yi was standing inside the iron gate entering Xiangqing. He was also surprised by the weather this morning. As garrison soldiers, they all had a fixed biological clock, no matter whether it was winter or summer. When the time came, my eyes opened before my mind was clear. When he opened his eyes today, he thought he had neurasthenia and insomnia or something, but then Gong Yi realized something was wrong. It wasn't that he woke up in the middle of the night, but that it was still dark. Yes, it was time for daybreak, but it was not yet daybreak. Where are you? I'm here to pick you up. It's very dangerous outside, he asked, and he was not exaggerating, but just look at the current environment: earthquake, mudslide, thick fog, jelly water, and now a dark special effect. This is a deliberate attempt to push humanity into a dead end. Given this environment, people living in the wild are truly doomed. No matter how capable Hwami is, he cannot stop the torment of nature. Upon learning that Chao Feng was escorting Qi Chuan and others to deliver supplies back to Xiangqing today, Gong Yi hurried over to see Hwami. As it turned out, the person he was most worried about was not in the team returning to Xiangqing. Hwami was silent for a moment. I left separately from them and have returned to Xiangqing now. See you later. She hung up the phone with Gong Yi and looked up at the dim sky. If she hadn't been wearing goggles, she would have been unable to move in this environment. Thinking about this problem, Hwami Shun returned to her Lotus Xingxing supermarket, and she decided to upgrade her factory. Maybe after upgrading, there will be 2 more supplies that can help her survive better in the dark. Level 13 Factory. Water bottles, mineral water, tarpaulin, self-priming filter type anti-particulate respirator, orange juice, ethanol, painkillers, sterile gauze, hemostatic gel, goggles, condoms, resin gloves limited production, semi-finished pickled fish X40, 000, chocolate cake X30, 000, semi-finished braised lion's head X20, 000, semi-finished braised spare ribs X10, 000, semi-finished pizza X5, 000, semi-finished crispy pork X2, 500 win a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X16. Well, this limited production is actually all food. Hwami felt it was a bit exaggerated. She set her sights on lottery X16 because she has found a large warehouse like the supply warehouse in City B, and now her oranges are supplying the survivors of 2 cities. Hwami feels that her level 14 space can still hold on for a while. She left the supermarket, walked to an open space in the backyard, and carefully clicked on Lottery X1. Get self-heating hot pot, tomato flavor. X10000000 unlock storage level 15, space 15 by 1, When a lucky draw X1 remaining draws X16, it was food again, and it had burst her level 14 storage. Huami felt that the tomato-flavored self-heating hot pot was of no use to her survival in the dark, so she ordered Lottery X1. Get the conditioning pack. Cumin powder. X10000000, remaining lucky draws X15 Huami. Is she going to sell mutton skewers? Giving her so many packets of cumin powder is more than enough for her to sell mutton skewers for a lifetime. Give me something useful. Huami roared, her hair standing on end with rage, and clicked on Lottery X1 several times in a row. Get laundry detergent X10000000, get potato chips, lime flavor. X10000000, get health pot. X10000000, get AK-47. X10000000, get melon seeds, caramel flavor. X10000000, get mechanical pencil. X10000000, unlock storage level 16, space 16 by 1. When a lucky draw X1 remaining lucky draws X10, what's all this mess? Huami didn't look carefully to see what was in the level 16 warehouse. She glanced at the subtitles and was shocked. What the Hades is this? Health teapot? It goes perfectly with the Qingxin Mingmu tea she drew last time, so she can drink a pot of it. At this time, the doorbell of the supermarket wall rang. The doorbell was connected to the inside of the supermarket. The contractor was indeed a professional engineer. He pulled the lines so far for Huami that she could sit in the supermarket and see through the surveillance camera who was coming to the door. It was a bunch of men with colorfully dyed hair. One of them was the man with tattoos who trapped Huami at the garbage dump last night. This group of people is obviously difficult to deal with and looks very aggressive. They pressed the doorbell for a long time, but there was no movement from inside. A man with dyed yellow hair turned around to look at the man with tattoos. Brother, is the person not in here? They were all fellow travelers who had fled from outside the city into Xiangqing. As soon as they entered Xiangqing, before they felt the harm of the jelly water on the road had been drained away by the garrison. After confirming that the rescue center in Xiangqing could still provide 2 meals a day, everyone stayed in Xiangqing. After hearing the tattooed man's confusing words, saying that the woman living inside the wall had killed all of his brothers, everyone immediately started to clamor to come over and take revenge. The man with tattooed arms was frightened. He didn't want to come in the first place. A professional killer like Huami was not on the same level as professional thugs like them. But he couldn't resist the instigation of his brothers. If he couldn't avenge himself, how could he survive in the underworld in the future? In fact, the man with tattoos didn't quite know what happened yesterday. Because it was too dark at night, he just kept running forward. Then he heard a loud noise behind him. He was so scared that he didn't dare to look back and just kept running forward desperately. When he ran back, he found that none of his brothers behind him had returned. So he was considered a fish that escaped Huami's net. Just like that, a bunch of hooligans who had just arrived in Xiangqing gathered in front of Huami's wall. Seeing that the gate still didn't open, someone couldn't help but shout, "Drive a car and break down this wall." Yes, I heard that there are a lot of supplies here. The supplies for the garrison are all dragged out from the basement of this community. This matter is no longer a secret in Xiangqing. Many people believe that the garrison has a huge amount of supplies, which they transport into Xiangqing from a secret storage point and store in the underground garage of this community. Then the supplies are hauled out from this underground garage every day. Especially recently, after the supplies at the garrison logistics office behind the rescue center were used up, Gong Yi ordered the direct cancellation of this garrison logistics office. From then on, the garrison in Xiangqing and the RV supermarket all dragged supplies from the basement of this community. Soon, the gang found a car and drove towards Huami's fence in the evening sky. "Hey, what are you doing?" Several patrolling garrisons, holding their guns, pointed them at the group of colorfully haired thugs on the opposite side. "Don't act rashly." The garrison was shocked that someone dared to cause trouble in Xiangqing. Looking at the group of hooligans gathered outside Sister Hua's wall, the garrison believed that they must be survivors who had just entered Xiangqing not long ago. When the gang saw a few guards showing up with guns and threatening them, they were startled and then burst into laughter. The 2 or 3 garrisons in Xiangqing actually threatened them with blank guns. The garrison on the opposite side said nothing, holding the gun, with goggles on his eyes, aiming at the hooligans closest to the wall. They are not the police. They won't keep telling you not to move or say that they will do something to you if you move again. It's enough to just say harsh words once. If those hooligans continue to act rashly, we will have no choice but to shoot them to death. They had never encountered tough garrisons in other cities because the garrisons in other cities were not equipped with live ammunition. In some cities, the garrisons are busy rescuing people and the police are maintaining order in the city. In some cities, the garrisons have to rescue people and maintain order in the city. In any case, they don't have live ammunition. Without the permission of the garrison headquarters, the garrison cannot privately open the city's armory to equip live ammunition. Bang of a gunshot. The gangster who was driving the car and preparing to ram the iron gate of the wall had a bloody hole in the middle of his forehead. There was a small crack in the glass in front of him. The car under his feet suddenly lost speed and rushed forward, directly hitting the gray wall. There was another loud bang, and the front of his car was smashed to pieces. The gangsters who were preparing to party all around suddenly fell silent. "Oh my God, this is..." Someone shouted. "Xiangqing garrison has live ammunition." Immediately afterwards, all the thugs in the surrounding area started running in all directions. Like a headless fly,